Chapter 105. The lounge was silent, like a deep sea. There was no sound for at least 2 seconds. Everyone looked at Li Daochong in astonishment, looking at this little thief who dared to speak rudely to Hong Yahai. Hong Yahai is a qi-gathering middle-stage cultivator, only 2 stages away from the foundation establishment stage. His strength in the underground city is definitely considered as a master. There are no more than 10 people in the entire underground city who are more powerful than Hong Yahai. All of them are the leaders of the underground forces, the bosses, the CEO-level people. The most astonished person is naturally Hong Yahai himself. This little thief who is still wet behind the ears dares to talk to him like this. Ha ha! Hong Yahai suddenly looks up and laughs, and then suddenly lowers his head, looking at Li Daochong, coldly says, "Little thief, this is the biggest joke I have heard this year. I'm afraid your brain is not very good. Come, I'll put my finger here. I want to see if it will be missing." Bang! Hong Yahai's voice has not yet faded. A fire talisman shot out from Li Daochong's hand. At such a close distance, it instantly bombarded Hong Yahai's body. The 3rd-level enhanced version of the fire talisman, the power can make a peak qi refining stage cultivator unable to bear, even seriously injuring them, but for a qi-gathering stage cultivator, it is not enough to pose a threat. But it can still cause pain. Despicable. Who would have thought that the little thief would actually fight just like that? He didn't play by the rules at all. Hong Yahai was careless. He took 2 steps back, but before he could stand firm, a silver light flashed. At that moment, Hong Yahai actually had a feeling that he was on the verge of death. A little guy in the qi refining stage actually made him, a qi gathering stage expert, feel this way. It is simply a disgrace. Hong Yahai stretched out his hand. A broadsword appeared in his hand. Clang! An ear-piercing sound rang out. Li Daochong's Zamadeo fiercely chopped down on the broadsword. The rebound force made him take 3 steps back. Hong Yahai's wrist was numb. The web between his thumb and forefinger directly split open. Blood flowed out. This scene, everyone was once again stunned. Hong Yahai was actually injured? Lin Yuhan's mouth was wide open as she looked at Li Daochong in surprise. At this time, she was a little confused. This teenager, who looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old, was able to force her and her cousin to retreat, and was even able to injure a middle-stage qi-gathering cultivator. What kind of monster was that? How could he be so strong? Could he be one of the 2 prodigies from the Gu clan or the House of Oku? Lin Yuhan was puzzled. How could such a person be a thief? Wang Jinlong looked at Hong Yahai with disdain in his eyes. He cursed in his heart. Trash, all you know is to lie on a woman's belly. Now you can't even deal with a small thief. Hong Yahai glanced at the area between his thumb and index finger. Burning with rage, he roared, "Motherf asterisk Ker, you're courting death." Li Daochong retreated 3 steps. The blood in his body churned. The inner strength of a middle-stage qi-gathering realm cultivator was really powerful. Compared to the previous killer, it was much more powerful. If not for Li Daochong's cultivation base greatly improved, and the fact that he took the initiative, his sneak attack caught Hong Yahai off guard. But even so, the one who was forced to retreat was Li Daochong. As for the injury between Hong Yahai's thumb and index finger, it was not because of Li Daochong's profound inner strength, but because of the advantage of the cultivation method. The 9-split saber technique caused Hong Yahai to be injured. No matter how, it was able to injure a middle-stage qi-gathering realm cultivator. Even Li Daochong himself was a little surprised. The earth-level cultivation method was really powerful. Hong Yahai was battered and exhausted after 2 moves. Seeing so many people lose face, they became really angry. With a loud shout, the spiritual energy in his body swelled, and he lightly shouted, "Mountain Breaking Sword." Just as Hong Yahai made his move, Li Daochong had already taken out a fire talisman. The advantage of the fire talisman was that it could be fired by pulling the trigger. There was no need to store power, no need to use qi, it could be fired in an instant. The only drawback was that it was a pure consumable. It was difficult to make and difficult to obtain. This time, Li Daochong used the level 4 fire talismans he had just made. There were only 2 of them in total. Li Daochong knew very well that once Hong Yahai was prepared and got serious, he would not be able to block his attack. The only way to gain the upper hand was to make the first move. The power of a level 4 fire talisman was completely different. Even a Qi-gathering realm cultivator would not be able to withstand it. Hong Yahai had already seen the fire talisman in Li Daochong's hand, but he did not care at all. How could a fire talisman of this level hurt him? But when the fire talisman turned into a fireball and flew towards him, Hong Yahai felt that something was wrong. He could not dodge it even if he wanted to. Boom! There was a muffled sound. Hong Yahai was sent flying backward, crashing heavily into the wall of the corridor more than 10 meters away. Li Daochong's eyes twitched. In a hurry, Hong Yahai changed the direction of the sword in his hand to block the fire talisman. The 2 forces cancelled each other out. Otherwise, Hong Yahai would have been sent flying out of the shadow tower. After the explosion, the lounge fell silent again. Everyone was stunned as they looked at Hong Yahai, who had hit the wall and then bounced back to the ground. Bah! Hong Yahai spat out a mouthful of saliva and stood up. He had been scared out of his wits just now. Although his face was still fierce, he looked at Li Daochong with a hint of fear in his eyes. He inadvertently glanced at Li Daochong's hand to see if there were any more fire talismans. Li Daochong's lips curled. He did not disappoint Hong Yahai. Another fire talisman appeared in his hand. Let's go together and take down this thief. Besides using fire talismans, there is nothing special about him. Hong Yahai did not dare to take the risk and ordered. The group of guards did not dare to move. They were all cursing in their hearts. Damn it, why don't you do it yourself? Even someone in the middle stage of the Qi gathering was sent flying. Wouldn't they be sending themselves to death if they went up? After the order was given, no one moved. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Didn't you hear what I said? Whoever doesn't go up will be fired. Hong Yahai was furious. His words were effective. The dozen or so guards looked at each other and gritted their teeth. Even if they were injured, it would be considered a work injury and they would be compensated handsomely. If they were fired, they would not get anything. After weighing the pros and cons, the group of guards made up their mind. Someone shouted and then rushed forward. Li Daochong held his Zamadeo horizontally. The 9 cracks knife technique was about to be used. Stop! A shout came from outside the door. Zhang Lao walked into the lounge with a gloomy face. His wrinkled old face was fuming with anger. What are you doing? Don't you know that I was discussing with the owner upstairs? Why are you making such a ruckus? Zhang Lao glanced around the room and questioned. Old Zhang, there's a thief stealing something. We're catching the thief. Wang Jinlong ran to old Ghost Zhang and said. What thief? The shadow-secluded house is heavily guarded. How could a thief sneak in? Zhang Lao questioned. Zhang Lao, I suspect that there is a mole who brought him in. Wang Jinlong hurriedly complained and looked at Xing Jiao. Where is the thief? Zhang Lao's face became more and more unpleasant. Him. Wang Jinlong pointed at Li Daochong. Slap. Zhang Lao raised his hand and slapped Wang Jinlong. Wang Jinlong covered his face and looked at Zhang Lao in horror. He is a VIP. I brought him in. Are you saying that I am a mole? Zhang Lao slapped him and said in a low voice. Hiss. Wang Jinlong gasped. Hong Yahai was dumbfounded. The group of guards wanted to cry but had no tears. Lin Yuhan and Lin Jiahao were confused. VIP. Chapter 106. With Li Daochong's age and clothes, no one would have thought that he would be a VIP. Anyone who could be a VIP of the Shadow Serene House was either rich or powerful. This guy was actually a VIP? Everyone was shocked. Wang Jinlong was dumbfounded. He looked at Li Daochong with a confused face. His face was twisted and his legs were weak. Hong Yahai's heart skipped a beat. He was completely stunned. He gritted his teeth and looked at Wang Jinlong. He wanted to rush up and twist this guy's head off. This time, he was going to die. Tsing Jiao, who had been called over, looked at Li Daochong with a surprised expression. She blinked her charming eyes. She hadn't expected a thief to become a VIP. She then smiled. Wang Jinlong had tried to trick her, but in the end, he had gone for wool and come home shorn. Tsing Jiao was very happy, but she did not show it on her face. Mr. Zhang had a noble status in the Shadow Serene house. The owner called him Grandpa Zhang in private. There were two people in the Shadow Serene house that could not be offended. One was the owner and the other was Mr. Zhang. To a certain extent, Elder Zhang was even more difficult to deal with than the owner of the Shadow Serene house. He had a high status but no official position. However, the higher-ups of the Shadow Serene house treated him with respect. The owner would listen to Elder Zhang's opinions when making decisions. VIP? Wang Jinlong covered his face and stuttered for a long time. His legs were shaking involuntarily. Manager Wang, I brought Brother Li in. Are you saying that I am a spy? Mr. Zhang asked again in an extremely cold tone. No, Mr. Zhang, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. I was blind. Wang Jinlong panicked. He did not care that so many people were looking at him. From now on, you don't have to wear the clothes that represent the Shadow Serene house. Get out. Mr. Zhang waved his hand. Wang Jinlong sat on the ground with a thud. Old Devil Zhang shifted his gaze to Hong Yahai, who shuddered. Did you attack Brother Li just now? Why did you order so many people to attack him? Old Devil Zhang's tone was calm, but this kind of tone made people shudder. Mr. Zhang, I just received an orange alert from Wang Jinlong. I thought that someone had invaded the Shadow Serene workshop, so I brought my brothers here to arrest them. I don't know anything else. Hong Yahai insisted that it was all Wang Jinlong's fault and that it had nothing to do with him. He was just doing his job. Humph, Division Chief Hong, this old man brought Brother Li up to the 3rd floor. When we passed by the 2nd floor, we saw you chatting happily with an upper-class woman. Didn't you see me bring Brother Li upstairs? Old Ghost Zhang questioned. Hong Yahai was speechless, his expression extremely awkward. I'll deduct 3 months of your salary. You'll stand guard outside the tower. You'll be reinstated after 3 months, Elder Zhang said straightforwardly. Hong Yahai secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although the punishment was severe, at least his job was saved. As for the other guards, Old Man Zhang had them disperse on their own. He then greeted the 2 descendants of the Lin family and arranged for Tsing Jiao to continue receiving them. Throughout the entire process, Li Daochong was a little surprised. He had already thought highly of Old Devil Zhang, but it seemed that he had still underestimated him. Old Devil Zhang's position in the Shadow Serene Square was far beyond Li Daochong's estimation. This old man was obviously not as simple as he looked. Brother Li, I'm really sorry. I should have given you a diamond VIP card in advance, Old Devil Zhang said apologetically to Li Daochong after dealing with the whole matter. Old Devil Zhang's voice was not loud, but it was still heard by Tsing Jiao, who was about to leave with the 2 descendants of the Lin family. She looked at Li Daochong again with a pair of seductive eyes. She was extremely curious about this young man. What was the background of this young man? Why did Elder Zhang value him so much that he even wanted to give him a diamond VIP card personally? That was the highest level of VIP in the Shadow Serene Square. Tsing Jiao really wanted to get in touch with Li Daochong, but she had a task at hand, so she had to leave with the 2 descendants of the Lin family first. Old Devil Zhang once again brought Li Daochong into his crafting room. After entering, Li Daochong directly asked, Elder Zhang, how much does it cost to upgrade the Zamadeo? Old Devil Zhang chuckled. Brother Li, you helped me catch so many dark ghosts last time. This old man will upgrade this saber for free. After pausing for a moment, He went straight to the point. Brotherly, a zombie ghost was detected in an area outside the safety zone of the giant Spirit space shuttle. I wonder if you're interested in coming with this old man to catch it? Li Daocheng's expression changed slightly when he heard about the zombie ghost. It was one of the more powerful dark ghosts of the Great Ghost level. Its strength was equivalent to a cultivator in the middle stage of the Qi gathering. Zombie ghosts could release zombie poison that could turn corpses into zombies. They could also infect living people and slowly turn them into zombies. It was a very vicious type of dark ghost. A single zombie ghost had once destroyed an entire cultivation planet, turning the entire planet into a zombie purgatory. Zombie ghosts were one of the dark ghosts that the Federation was most wary of. They were not allowed to exist. Li Daocheng's heart was moved. He wanted to increase his strength faster, and hunting high-level dark ghosts was the best way to do so. Li Daocheng had no reason to refuse old Devil Zhang's invitation. With someone helping him, the danger would be greatly reduced. Li Daocheng pondered for a moment and asked, "When are we going?" Old Devil Zhang knew there was hope and hurriedly said, "How about half a month later? To be safe, this old man needs to refine a few artifacts that can restrain zombie ghosts and resist zombie poison." Li Daocheng's expression changed slightly. Half a month would not do. The new star competition was about to begin. He would not have time then. "Old Devil Zhang, I have some matters to attend to in half a month. Can we change it to a month later?" Old Devil Zhang thought for a moment and said, "All right, then a month later. Zombie ghosts are cunning by nature and can release zombie poison to control zombies. At that time, I'm afraid that just the two of us might not be enough. I'll have the owner of the Blue Bay Star branch of the Shadow Serene Square come with us. Brotherly, do you have any objections?" Li Daocheng shrugged. "I don't have any objections." When old Devil Zhang saw Li Daocheng agree, he was overjoyed. He immediately took out a transparent spirit card and handed it to him. "Brotherly, this is the Shadow Serene Square's Diamond VIP card. With this card, you can enter and exit the Shadow Serene Square as you please. You can enjoy a 20% discount on any purchase. When you participate in the Shadow Serene Square's auctions, you will have priority to purchase at the same price." Li Daocheng put away the transparent spirit card and said goodbye to old Devil Zhang. After exiting the Shadow Serene Tower, Li Daocheng carefully made his way out of the underground city. In the next half a month, Li Daocheng did not go to the Titanic Spirit Space Shuttle again. He had killed most of the dark ghosts in the safe zone. The remaining ones were not enough to fill the gaps between Li Daocheng's teeth. Therefore, Li Daocheng spent the remaining half a month in the old mansion's underground training room consolidating his cultivation. He also bought 3 mid-level steel puppets to practice the 9-split saber technique. Bang, crack, dong. In the underground training room, Li Daocheng was sweating profusely while fighting with a steel puppet at the early stage of the Qi gathering. Half a month later, 3 steel puppets attacked at the same time. Li Daocheng could not withstand a single blow from them. Unknowingly, the Blue Bay Star's first Rising Star competition officially began in Xiansong University. On the first day of the competition, the weather was hot. The Xiansong University was even hotter. Tens of thousands of spectators had come to watch the competition. Everyone wanted to know who was the number 1 of the Blue Bay Star's younger generation. Was it Okikan? Gu Chao? Or was it Orson? Or was it Yi Feiyue or Duan Yao? As for Li Daocheng, he had already been forgotten by everyone. Most people thought that he had died in the process of his travels. There were still 10 minutes before the competition officially began. Chapter 107. 3 circular arenas were placed in the school's largest square. Today was the preliminaries. Among more than 1,800 participating students, 200 would be selected to enter tomorrow's semifinals. In the first round, each student would draw lots to determine their opponent. Students with a cultivation level of Qi refinement level 10 and above would not participate in the first round. The number of students in this batch was extremely limited, with a total of more than 80 people. The rest of the students who won in the first round would draw lots to fight against each other, and the losers would draw lots to fight against each other. Everything was arranged by the spiritual brain, and the drawing of lots was completed almost instantly. Those who won 5 matches would enter the semifinals. Those who lost 3 matches in a row or lost their combat ability would be eliminated. In terms of the rules of the duel, no killing, no poison, and no other restrictions. Techniques, magical weapons, talismans, magical powers, and even hidden weapons could be used at will. However, the preliminaries had a time limit of 3 minutes. If no winner was decided after 3 minutes, it would be considered a draw, and the loser would be included in the list of losers to draw lots. As the principal of the school hosting the first New Star competition, Yuan Longji naturally had to give a speech before the competition began. Then, the head of the Department of Education would give a speech, wishing the first New Star competition a success. Then came the drawing of lots. Behind the podium was a huge Spiritual Brains spiritual video screen, on which the names kept rolling. In just a few seconds, the list of all the participating students was arranged. The preliminaries would not be held in the arena. Every participating student only needed to enter the spiritual network through their wristwatches. The duel would be held in the spiritual network's great illusionary land, which would save time and allow everyone to duel at the same time. Among all the people Li Daochong knew, more than half of them were not qualified to participate. Lu Feng, Ouyang Qian, Li Qingyao, Zhao Peng, Qiao Sinuo, and others were not in the 8th level of Qi refinement. Yi Feiyue, Lu Ming, and Sidu Lan were among the few students Li Daochong knew who could participate. There were still 10 minutes before the start of the competition. Both the participating students and the audience entered the spiritual network. The audience could choose to watch the contestants they were interested in. However, the preliminaries naturally did not attract much attention. The real experts were not in the first round. Only in the second round would they be arranged to enter the winners list and draw lots. After entering the spiritual network, the participating students would be directly transmitted to the dual platforms. Nearly 900 dual platforms were all open to the public. For a moment, the great illusionary land on the spiritual net was extremely crowded. The entire Tianyuan city was focused on the first Rising Star competition. Although there were many spectators, there were so many matches in the first round of the qualifiers, so the crowd was still dispersed. The audience's attention was mainly focused on a few talented young cultivators. Although their cultivation hadn't reached the 10th layer of Qi refining, their strength wasn't any weaker than a 10th layer Qi refining cultivator. Tian Jintian, the number 1 member of the Tian family in Tianyuan City, Lin Yuhan and Lin Jiahao from the Lin family in Wanhai City, Lian Fugue from the Lian family, Wu Hai from the Wu family, and Qiu Yunfei from the Qiu family. These people all had the strength to challenge students in the 10th layer of Qi refining. In addition, there were a few other second-year students who were also receiving a lot of attention. Among them, the most prominent were Chun Lin and Zhou Wenshan. Both of them were in the 9th layer of Qi refining. Although their talent wasn't very high, they were second-year students after all. Whether it was in terms of cultivation methods or actual combat experience, they were much more experienced than the freshmen. Lian Fugue was a little fatty. He was in the 8th layer of Qi refining and a member of the Green Wolf Society. He was fighting against Li Daochong with Zhan Honglai on the ghost hunting planet. At this time, Lian Fugue was standing on the dual platform with a sinister smile on his face. All the students on the other dual platforms were ready, but there was no one in front of him. At first, Lian Fugue was a little confused. He thought his opponent was a careless person who hadn't entered the dual platform 5 minutes before the start of the competition. But when Lian Fugue saw his opponent's name clearly, he suddenly burst into laughter. His opponent was Li Daochong. How could a dead man appear? He could win without a fight. Lien Fugue was beaming with joy. Lien Fugue himself was one of the stronger contestants. Therefore, the dual platform he was on had a lot of spectators. There were more than 1,000 people. There were also some people who saw Li Daochong's name and entered the platform out of curiosity. After the news of Li Daochong's death spread, it wasn't very convincing at first. But in the following days, no one saw Li Daochong again. Gradually, people began to believe that Li Daochong was dead. Otherwise, how could there be no trace of him after nearly 3 months? Early deaths of cultivators happened frequently. Unless everyone could be effectively protected later on, there was nothing strange about this kind of thing. Ouyang Qian sat in the audience with a gloomy expression. Even Li Qingyao didn't know where Li Daochong was. It seemed that the rumors were most likely true. As the saying goes, there is no smoke without fire. Sister, why are you here? After entering the audience, Qiao Sinuo saw Qiao Shima sitting at the front. Her pretty face immediately showed a strange expression. I'm here to take a look. Qiao Shima's beautiful face was a little haggard. The Qiao family had fallen into crisis again in the past few months. Her disappointing father had caused trouble again. Li Daochong's unexpected counterattack made Qiao Shima feel a little more complicated. She had never thought that this silly young master would become so powerful. After returning from the Ghost Hunter planet, Qiao Sinuo told Qiao Shima everything that had happened. She thought that her sister would be happy. Unexpectedly, Qiao Shima listened indifferently and said that they were divorced. Qiao Sinuo looked at her sister in shock and was speechless. She recalled her behavior of calling Li Daochong brother-in-law. It was ridiculous. Sister, Li Daochong won't appear. I've asked his sister Li Qingyao. He hasn't sent back any news since he left home to travel, Qiao Sinuo said with a sigh. Yes, I know. Qiao Shima nodded slightly, a trace of sadness flashing through her beautiful eyes. Recalling Li Daochong's various actions in the past, she suddenly felt a little sorry for him. Ha ha, Lien Fugue, that brat, actually drew a dead man. His luck is pretty good. I wonder who signed up Li Daochong. Laughter came from the seats next to them. Shu, lower your voice. I heard that the one who signed up Li Daochong was Qian Changhai, the vice dean of the Cultivation Academy. He thinks very highly of Li Daochong. Another audience member pointed at the back of a thin and weak old man standing at the front. Qian Changhai kept looking at the time. There were only 3 minutes left until the duel began. If a contestant didn't show up, they would be disqualified. Qian Changhai didn't believe the news that Li Daochong was dead. He had already signed up Li Daochong, but until now Li Daochong still hadn't appeared. The old man's heart began to waver. Chapter 108. Young Master Zhan, Li Daochong still hasn't shown up. He must have been killed by the assassins. Haha, congratulations on removing the thorn in your heart. Qiao Shima is now a widow. Chen Puhua's expression was as treacherous as it could get. As Zhan Honglia's lackey, Chen Puhua was qualified. With his father's full support, Zhan Honglai had endured hellish training for 3 months, soaking in the qi-gathering liquid at night. Now that he had successfully broken through to the 11th level of the qi refining stage, he was only 1 step away from the qi gathering stage. Both his strength and cultivation had greatly increased. Zhan Honglai had a bye in the first round, so he hadn't entered the spiritual nexus. Instead, he had waited outside for the next round to begin. However, Chen Puhua had sent him a message, saying that Li Daochong's name was on the list for the preliminaries. Li Daochong's opponent was one of their bad friends, little fatty Lien Fugue. It wasn't strange that Li Daochong's name was in the preliminaries. The Zhan family had already received the news that the old man, Qian Changhai, had registered Li Daochong as soon as possible. Li Daochong was first in the beta test, so he naturally met the requirements to participate in the beta test. In addition, Qian Chonghai had used his position to say that Li Daochong was his personal disciple. Naturally, Li Daochong didn't need to show up to easily register his name. However, Zhan Honglai still wanted to see with his own eyes whether Li Daochong would appear. Although the probability was 0, he still wanted to see it with his own eyes. In addition, Chen Puhua had also told Zhan Honglai that Xiao Shima had also come. This woman that Zhan Honglai had yearned for day and night had almost disappeared in recent months. The Qiao family's business had suffered a setback, and Xiao Shima's father had become addicted to gambling and owed a huge debt. Zhan Honglai had added fuel to the fire behind the scenes. His goal was to push Xiao Shima into a corner. Zhan Honglai was well aware of Xiao Shima's character. She was unmoved by force or persuasion. She would never fall into his arms just by throwing money at her. First, he would make her a widow. Then, he would destroy the Qiao family. Xiao Shima would have no one to rely on. The only person she could think of would be Zhan Honglai. Zhan Honglia's wishful thinking had long been in place. At this moment, he was standing at the back of the audience and looking at Xiao Shima in the front row. Zhan Honglia's face revealed a proud smile. Soon, the beauty he yearned for day and night would fall into his arms. How can trash like Li Daochong be compared to young Master Zhan? That brat was destined to be a dead piece of trash with no future since the day he was born, another rich young master beside Chen Puhua said disdainfully. You guys are the trash. As the rich young masters laughed and cursed, Lu Feng, who was sitting in the back row, cursed angrily. He couldn't bear to listen any longer. As a good friend, Lu Feng didn't want to believe the news of Li Daochong's death. However, he couldn't find Li Daochong several times. Li Qingyao also didn't know of Li Daochong's whereabouts. Today, when he saw Li Daochong's name appear on the preliminary list, Lu Feng came to watch with a trace of hope. How he wished that his good friend could appear on the battle platform. He also thought that one day, he could serve in the military with Li Daochong and fight on the front lines. They could drive those damned nether ghosts back to the Hades and protect their country. But now all of this was just a dream. Lu Feng, are you King itching for a beating? Hurry up and come over here and kowtow. I'll pretend you didn't hear anything, the rich young master beside Chen Puhua said harshly. The students sitting next to Lu Feng saw that the situation wasn't right. They all got up and left, afraid that they would get into trouble. All of a sudden, there was no one between Lu Feng and the rich young master, leaving only 2 empty chairs. Although they were in the great illusionary land of the spiritual nexus, if they made a move, it would still cause harm to the main body. The spirit body in the great illusionary land was connected to the main body. Lu Feng cultivated desperately for a year and was only at the 4th level of qi refinement. On the other hand, the rich young master usually ate, drank, and played. With the strong support of his family's resources, he was already at the peak of the 6th level of qi refinement. He was only a step away from the 7th level of qi refinement. Kowtow your mother. Lu Feng's eyes were bloodshot. The cursing between the two sides quickly alarmed the entire stands. Many students turned their heads to look. Lu Ming and Sidulan, who were sitting on the other side, also saw this scene. Who is that guy? How did he provoke young Master Zhan and his gang? Sidulan was slightly puzzled. When the students in the school saw young Master Zhan and his gang, they all avoided them. That kid is one of Li Daochong's few good friends. His name is Lu Feng. His family is poor. Last year, Li Daochong gave him a lot of his resources, so the two of them have a good relationship. Lu Ming yawned and said, Lu Ming, you seem to be very concerned about Li Daochong's matters. You even investigated his friends? Sidulan turned her face and said with a trace of surprise in her eyes. When it comes to friends worth making, this young master should at least try to understand them. Unfortunately, it's useless now. That kid Li Daochong's life isn't tough enough. There's nothing we can do about it. Lu Ming said with a look of pity. Lu Ming and Sidulan were both at the 10th level of Qi refinement. They had no one in the first round and should have been waiting for the second round to begin. However, after seeing Li Daochong's name, the two of them still decided to come and take a look. Damn trash, you're courting death. How could the rich young master stand Lu Feng's rude words in front of everyone? He immediately flew into a rage. He suddenly stood up and rushed towards Lu Feng. He grabbed his collar and slapped him twice. Lu Feng suddenly saw stars and his mind became unstable. His body even trembled. At this time, Qian Changhai, who was standing at the front of the audience, also heard the commotion. He turned his head and looked. As the school's vice principal, he should have stepped forward to stop a conflict between students. However, Qian Changhai's turbid eyes did not have a trace of light. After a glance, he turned his head and looked towards the battle platform. Qian Changhai's expression was lonely and his heart was empty. At this time, even the beauty in his eyes had become dim. A student that he had high hopes for had disappeared just like that. If he was alive, he could not find his body. If he was dead, he could not find his body. How could he not be heartbroken? Qian Changhai had a unique eye for people. As he observed Li Daochong and Chu Qianyue's special training, he liked this kid more and more. In his opinion, Li Daochong's future achievements would be even greater than Battle Sword Augustine's. More importantly, Li Daochong would be just like Chu Qianyue, a sharp blade for the Federation to destroy Dark Ghost. But now that this sharp blade was gone, Qian Changhai felt as if he had lost something very important in his life. Principal Qian, there's a fight in the back. A student recognized Qian Changhai and ran over to shout. Qian Changhai acted as if he did not hear. He only looked at the empty spot across from Lian Fugui on the battle platform. Being ignored, the student was embarrassed. He was about to turn and leave when Qian Changhai suddenly turned his head and looked at him, his eyes shining. The student was given a fright. His face paled as he felt a wave of pressure assault him. He quickly retreated several steps and looked at Qian Changhai in fear. Then, a strange smile appeared on Qian Changhai's wrinkled face. Had the vice principal gone crazy? The student's legs went soft. Ha ha ha! Qian Changhai raised his head and laughed. The student ran away with snot running down his nose. The surrounding students looked at Qian Changhai in fear. What was this usually frivolous vice principal laughing about? In the back of the audience, Lu Feng, who had been slapped twice by the rich young master, was so enraged that even a rabbit would bite. Lu Feng bit down on the rich young master's hand. Ah, damn dog, die! The rich young master screamed and punched Lu Feng's temple. Lu Feng's spiritual body would definitely be seriously injured by this punch, and his main body would also be affected. Many girls cried out in fear, not daring to look. The boys were all pale, feeling injustice for Lu Feng, but they did not dare to say anything. Bang! A muffled sound. The rich young master's body flew back like a broken kite, flying several dozen meters before landing at Lian Fugui's feet. Chapter 109. The audience was completely silent. Everyone's expression was different, but they were all shocked and stunned. Qiao Shima's dull face seemed to have a little color at this time, and her small mouth was wide open. Qiao Shima covered her mouth and looked at the familiar figure in disbelief. Lu Ming stood up from his seat, and Sidu Lan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Lu Feng looked at Li Daochong, who suddenly appeared, and thought it was fake. He rubbed his eyes, but he still didn't believe it and reached out to touch Li Daochong. I'm not gay. Li Daochong took a step back. Daochong, it's really you. Lu Feng felt like he was going to cry. Nonsense, it's the real deal, Li Daochong replied in a bad mood. You're not dead? Lu Feng continued to ask. Ba. What do you mean by dead? Okay, I'll stop talking to you. The battle is about to start. If I don't appear on the battle platform, I'll be disqualified, Li Daochong said with a look of disgust. After saying that, Li Daocheng's figure flashed and flew into the air, landing on the battle platform from the audience. There were still 10 seconds before the battle began. Lien Fugui's neck stretched out like a crow, and his 2 small eyes turned into 2 small dots, staring blankly at Li Daocheng, who landed on the battle platform at the last moment. The Lien family was also involved in the plan to deal with Li Daocheng, so Lien Fugui naturally knew that more than a dozen families had joined together to secretly hire assassins to kill Li Daocheng. He heard that the hired assassins had qi gathering cultivation, and killing Li Daocheng, who was in the qi refinement stage, was still not a certainty. Lien Fugui felt the comfort of ice and fire in a few minutes. He thought he could win without a fight, but he didn't expect Li Daocheng to come back from the dead and appear at the last moment. Lien Fugui had seen with his own eyes how Li Daocheng had beaten Zhan Honglai into a dead dog on the ghost-hunting planet. Young Master Zhan, who was awesome in his heart, was completely powerless in front of Li Daocheng. Even though Li Daocheng's strength had not increased during this period of time and was still at the same level as during the beta test, even Fu Gui was no match for him. In the audience, Zhan Honglia's heart was in turmoil. He looked at Li Daocheng in shock and anger. This brat didn't die? How could this be? Zhan Honglai gritted his teeth as the aura in his body surged. When he looked at Xiao Shima and saw the joy on her delicate and beautiful face, he was about to explode from anger. Zhan Honglia's body trembled uncontrollably. This thorn in his side was harder to remove than he had imagined. Even the assassin couldn't kill Li Daocheng. Zhan Honglai suddenly realized that this idiot, whom he had once looked down on and regarded as an ant, was growing at an astonishing speed. Don't underestimate anyone, especially your enemy. Even a mosquito can take the life of an elephant. This sentence, which his father often said to Zhan Honglai, was now echoing in Zhan Honglia's ears. Zhan Honglia's trembling body gradually calmed down. He clenched his fists tightly and the anger in his eyes slowly dissipated, replaced by a rare seriousness. Li Daocheng, fortunately you didn't die. Now I have the chance to end you with my own hand. You'd better pray that I'm not your opponent in the draw. If I am, I will completely destroy you in front of the entire Tianyuan city. Zhan Honglia's lips curled into a bloody smile. His eyes finally fell on Xiao Shima in the front row, and then his figure flashed out of the great illusionary land. Zhan Honglai had left, but Chen Puhua was still in a daze. He stood behind the audience as if he had entered a trance. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. On the battle platform, are you a human or a ghost? Lien Fugui was incoherent. Just as he finished speaking, beep, a clear sound. Planet Indigo Bay, the first Rising Star competition begins now. Students, for a better future as a cultivator, let's fight. An inspiring yet gentle female voice rang out on all the battle platforms. Immediately, all the battle platforms supported a virtual protective net to prevent the aftermath of the battle from affecting the audience. After Lien Fugui asked this question, Li Daocheng acted as if he didn't hear it and slowly walked toward Lien Fugui. Li Daocheng's aura was very peaceful. There was almost no release, and no strong aura could be felt. However, Lien Fugui felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. He trembled and couldn't move. The scene of Li Daocheng beating Zhan Honglai was still vivid in his mind. Lien Fugui felt scared just thinking about it. Don't come over," Lien Fugui said in horror. Hearing this, the audience in the audience roared with laughter. Who would say something like this on the battle platform? Li Daocheng walked in front of Lien Fugui and looked at him with an expressionless face. Lien Fugui felt his hair stand on end. He. Suddenly, Li Daocheng laughed. Duh. Lien Fugui took 2 steps back and sat on the ground with a thump. He didn't know why, but seeing Li Daocheng laugh made his hair stand on end. Li Daocheng didn't chase after Lien Fugui. He picked up the rich young master who was still lying on the stage and threw him. The rich young master was thrown high into the air like a ball of paper. As he landed, Li Daochong waved his hand. Ping! The already unconscious Kuo Xiao suffered another heavy blow and was sent flying backwards. With a boom, he crashed into the protective net of the battle platform, bouncing back and crashing onto the platform. The rich young master's spirit body showed signs of collapsing and disappeared in a short while. He directly left the spiritual net. The rich young master's body spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground with a thump. The attendant beside him was shocked. Lien Fugui awkwardly got up and retreated more than 10 steps to keep a safe distance from Li Daochong. His fat face showed a trace of ruthlessness, and a broad axe appeared in his hand. There was a layer of faint flames burning on it. This was a human-tier mid-grade flame axe. In his other hand there was a blue talisman. It was a level 3 thunder talisman with a very strong attack power. Lien Fugui didn't dare to get close to Li Daochong. Even if he had a trump card, he didn't think he could defeat Li Daochong for sure. But the little fatty felt that as long as he put some distance between them, he could use his family's footwork to attack Li Daochong from time to time. As long as he didn't collapse, he should be able to drag it out for 3 minutes. In any case, he was now at the peak of the 8th level of qi refining. Lien Fugui is getting serious. He even took out his flame axe. No matter how strong Li Daochong is, it won't be that easy to defeat him, a student in the audience said. Li Daochong is unarmed. His bare hands may not be a match for Lien Fugui. The damn fatty still has brute strength. The Lien family's mountain-splitting axe art is a human-tier high-grade technique. It can't be underestimated, another student said. At the same time, on the battle platform, after Li Daochong eliminated the eyesore, he didn't move. He just looked at Lien Fugui indifferently. With the flame axe in his hand, Lien Fugui had some confidence. With an axe in hand, I have the courage. Li Daochong, don't think you're so great. Come, believe it or not, I'll beat you. Lien Fugui raised his flame axe and shouted. But his words stopped abruptly. Lien Fugui's small eyes were turbid. Clang, the flame axe in his hand fell to the ground for some reason. Li Daochong turned around and walked down the platform. What is Li Daochong doing? Is he giving up? Someone in the audience said in surprise. Chapter 110. Li Daochong's action of turning around and stepping down from the stage caused an uproar in the audience. They didn't know why Li Daochong did that. Li Daochong had only taken a few steps when the protective net of the platform was automatically removed. Thud! Lien Fugui's fat body stiffened and fell to the ground. Li Daochong wins. The announcement sounded. The audience was once again in an uproar. They were all baffled and had no idea what had just happened. Only Qian Changhai, who was standing in the audience, had a smile on his old face. Everything was within his expectations, but there was still a hint of surprise in his eyes. Even I can't see through this kid's telekinesis attack, Qian Changhai thought to himself. Li Daochong walked down the platform without looking back. What happened? Someone in the audience asked in surprise. Did you see Li Daochong's move? I didn't see it. Could it be that Lien Fugui had a stroke? I heard that this kid is sucking immortal herbs. Everyone in the audience was baffled. They had no idea what had just happened. Even the powerful Sidulan and Lu Ming had no idea how Li Daochong had defeated Lien Fugui. For a moment, everyone looked at Li Daochong with confusion. As Li Daochong's good friend, Lu Feng was in a daze. During the end-of-term testing, Li Daochong was already very strong. Now, he seemed to be even stronger. Qiao Shima's beautiful eyes flickered. At this moment, Li Daochong was becoming more and more unpredictable in her eyes. Qiao Shima felt that she had become a fool. Her prejudices and opinions about Li Daochong in the past were just a joke. Qiao Shima was the first to react. He rushed down the platform from the audience and ran toward Li Daochong. Brother-in-law, no, Li Daochong, how did you defeat Lien Fugui just now? Why didn't I see you do anything? Xiao Shima asked with a strange expression. Li Daochong smiled and said, I used a hidden weapon. Xiao Sinuo blinked in disbelief, but seeing that Li Daochong didn't seem to want to talk about it, he stopped asking. At this time, Lu Feng also walked over with a strange look in his eyes. Li Daochong's changes in the past few months were too shocking. A few months ago, Li Daochong was ranked last in the whole school, while Lu Feng was considered to be in the middle of the ordinary class. At that time, Lu Feng, as his good friend, didn't look down on Li Daochong. He was just anxious for his good friend and hoped that he could also awaken his spirit vein. But today, a few months later, not only had Li Daochong awakened his spiritual meridians, but he had also defeated an expert in the 8th level of qi refining without even moving. As a good friend, Lu Feng was happy for Li Daochong, but he also felt a sense of distance in his heart. Lu Feng knew that the gap between him and Li Daochong was far greater than the gap between him and himself. Daochong, congratulations on your victory. Lu Feng congratulated with a bit of shyness. Feng Zi, you have to work hard. If you have any difficulties in your cultivation, you can tell me. Li Daochong patted Lu Feng's shoulder. In the corner of the auditorium sat a spectator wearing a robe. His head was covered by a hood, and his face was hidden in the large robe, making it impossible to see his appearance clearly. Even his gender was unclear. Under the robe hid a delicate and curvaceous body. It was a woman. If Li Daochong saw her, he would be shocked. She was Li Daochong, who had met him half a month ago in the underground city, Xingjiao. This guy is amazing. No wonder Mr. Zhang thinks so highly of him. He defeated an opponent in the 8th level of qi refining without even making a move. Even a cultivator in the qi gathering stage might not be able to do that, Xingjiao muttered to herself. After parting with Li Daochong last time, Xingjiao learned some information about Li Daochong from Mr. Zhang. Xingjiao was very curious about Li Daochong and wanted to know who this young man was. Xingjiao, who had a keen sense of professionalism, felt that her rapid promotion in the Shadow Serene Square could be greatly helped if she had a good relationship with this young man. Xingjiao was a very powerful spiritual net hacker. This was her secret. Other than her master, no one else knew about this secret. Xingjiao could easily infiltrate the back end of the spiritual net of some medium-sized cultivation companies and obtain valuable information. Of course, this was against the Federation's cultivation law. If there was no special need, Xingjiao would not do it. This time, in order to investigate Li Daochong, Xingjiao could be said to have used all her skills, but in the end, she found that this person did not seem to exist. Xingjiao had to investigate from another angle. She collected information about a group of young talents in the Blue Bay Star and analyzed it. In the end, there was no result. Xingjiao did not give up and checked some of the major events that had happened in the Blue Bay Star in the past few months. Heaven did not disappoint those who worked hard. Although Xingjiao still did not find any accurate information about this young man's identity, through her woman's intuition, Xingjiao finally locked onto the first place of Xiansong University's end-of-term test, Li Daochong. However, when Xingjiao combined all the information she could find about this young man, Li Daochong, she found that he was very likely dead. However, Xingjiao did not give up because of this. In the information she investigated, Li Daochong's name appeared in the Rising Star competition. With the mentality of giving it a try, Xingjiao went to the competition venue to watch. The match she chose was naturally Li Daochong's match. When Li Daochong appeared, Xingjiao almost screamed. She had guessed correctly. Li Daochong was the young man who had been brought to the Serene House by old Zhang half a month ago. Seeing how powerful Li Daochong was, Xingjiao's desire to get close to this young man became even stronger. If she wanted to be promoted in the future, she would have to rely on him. Xingjiao thought to herself. The news that Li Daochong did not die and appeared on the preliminaries battle platform quickly spread. The video of his battle with Lien Fugue was also spread. For a time, Tianyuan City was in an uproar. Many people began to analyze how Li Daochong defeated Lien Fugue. There were different opinions. There was an uproar under that video. Some people said that Li Daochong used a secret technique, a kind of invisible attack, such as Shadowless Hand, Ghost Claw, Qi Condensed Finger, Fighting Spirit, and so on. Some people said that Lien Fugue was too angry and was affected by Li Daochong's psychological pressure, which caused the spirit energy in his body to become chaotic and faint. Some people also said that Li Daochong caught a dead mouse by chance. Lien Fugue had already gone mad and would faint once he was agitated. However, a very small number of people believed that Li Daochong had used some kind of hidden weapon on Lien Fugue. In short, there were thousands of analysis posts in 10 minutes. As the person involved, Li Daochong had already logged out of the spiritual nexus and was waiting for the second round to begin. Many students logged out of the spiritual nexus to see Li Daochong himself. However, they did not find any trace of Li Daochong near the 3 standard arenas. At this time, Li Daochong was sitting quietly in the Despair training room. This place was of great significance to him. It was the place where his strength really began to soar. Li Daochong hoped that Chu Qianyue could see his performance in the competition with her own eyes. Unfortunately, he did not know where his teacher was now. The first round was soon over. After the spiritual brain drew lots, the second round was about to begin. Li Daochong received the message and logged into the spiritual nexus again. He was directly transmitted to the battle platform. This time, there were no empty seats in the auditorium. There were at least tens of thousands of people present. The battle platform where Li Daochong appeared became the most popular viewing platform of the second round. The Grand Illusionary Land Company immediately broadcasted this match worldwide. Chapter 111. At the start of the second round, those students who were in the 10th level of Qi refining and above who didn't get a bye in the first round would also have to fight. Gu Chao, Ao Kechuan, Orson, Duan Yao, and Yi Feiyue's matches were very popular. The audience was packed with people. Apart from them, Lu Ming, Li Tianyao, Zhan Honglai, and Sidu Lan's matches were also very popular. However, the most popular match of the second round was still Li Daochong's match. The audience didn't think that Li Daochong was very strong, but rather they wanted to see what kind of concealed weapon he was using. Under the video of the first round, a lot of people made bets. They bet on what kind of concealed weapon or technique Li Daochong was using. Someone bet 100,000 Federation coins that Li Daochong was using the Dense Fog Company's Shadow Dart. This kind of concealed weapon was made from a very special magic treasure material. It was silent and had an invisibility effect. Zhou Wenshan was much stronger than Lien Fugue. His cultivation was at the peak of the 9th level of Qi refining, and he was very experienced in fighting. He was proficient in close combat and concealed weapons. On the battle platform, Li Daochong stood with his eyes closed with an indifferent expression. This action made Zhou Wenshan very angry. This guy was actually closing his eyes in front of him? This was clearly looking down on him. However, although Zhou Wenshan was angry, he didn't lose his cool. He already knew that Li Daochong was using concealed weapons. Zhou Wenshan himself was proficient in concealed weapons. It just so happened that he also had the Dense Fog Company's Shadow Darts. This kind of invisible concealed weapon that cost 50,000 Federation coins was a must-have for traveling. Shadow darts had many shortcomings compared to talismans. For example, the power of the darts was not fixed. Instead, it was determined by the strength of the person who cast it. A powerful person could easily cut off a mountain with a single dart, while a weak person might not even be able to pierce through a piece of wood. However, shadow darts also had many advantages. For example, they were silent and could kill people without being seen. Zhou Wenshan was an expert in concealed weapons. He was proficient in both releasing and blocking concealed weapons. You dare to look down on me? I'll make you cry later. Li Daochong, don't think that you're so awesome just because you got first place in the exam. I'll let you know that you have to pay the price for underestimating your opponent. Just close your eyes. Zhou Wenshan coldly looked at Li Daochong, who was 10 meters away from him, and thought. At this time, in addition to the students, there were all kinds of people in the audience. Zhang Jintian sat in an inconspicuous position with a gloomy face. When he found out that Li was Li Daochong's death, he knocked out the family servant who came to report. The cost of hiring an assassin was so high that even the Zhang family felt the pinch. The assassin accepted the money, but he was still alive. Zhang Jintian immediately sent a message to the Dark Knight contact. The other party replied that they would investigate. These 3 words sent Jintian away. How could Jintian not feel heartache when he lost 5 million Federation coins? More importantly, Li Daochong appeared on the battle platform alive and kicking, and even became famous in one battle. The more famous Li Daochong was, the greater the price to pay to deal with him. Jintian regretted that he was too cautious. He should have personally gone to Li Daochong's residence to investigate. It was too late to regret now. Looking at Li Daochong standing on the battle platform with his eyes closed, Jintian's nostrils were spewing fire. That young face that looked similar to Li Tianyang was not pleasing to the eye. Of course, it was not only Zhang Jintian who was distressed, but also Li Tianxing and the senior members of the Li family. For the past 3 months, they had thought that Li Daochong was dead, and Li Tianyang was about to die. They had sent many people to the old house, but there was no trace of the father and son. They had even used some magic tools, but there was still no result. Only Li Qinyao and the maid, Kanu, lived in the old mansion. However, after Li Daochong's appearance, the Li family's higher-ups, who had finally relaxed for the past few days, once again felt their hearts in their throat. Li Daochong was safe and sound, but where had Li Tianyang gone? As long as this all-powerful boss was alive, he was a threat to the higher-ups who controlled the Li family. In fact, the Li family's affairs had not been going well for the past 6 months. Many members of the Li family had voiced their opinion that the current head of the family was not as capable as Li Tianyang. The family was walking down the altar, and they hoped that Li Tianyang could come back and continue to lead the family. Such voices were extremely bad for the Li family's higher-up. The 3 elders, the head of the family, and the head of the family had not been having a good time recently. The brothers Li Tianxing and Li Tianhe had lived under the shadow of Li Tianyang since they were young. They had been firmly suppressed by Li Tianyang. Although the 3 elders were seniors, ever since Li Tianyang became the head of the family, he had not put them in his eyes at all. Not only did he not give them any face, but he also infinitely reduced their authority to the point that they existed in name only. Only after Li Tianyang's accident did they truly feel the prestige and power of an elder. This long-awaited feeling was very good. However, as long as Li Tianyang was still alive, their hearts would not be at ease. After Li Daochong's strong victory in the first round, the Li family and the Zhang family quickly contacted each other. They bribed the 2 lecturers, Lian Bin and Tian Bo, and had them tamper with the lots. Zhou Wenshan becoming Li Daochong's opponent was not randomly drawn by the spiritual brain. It was specially arranged. Li Tianhe even used his status as the head of the Li family to find Yuan Longji and promised him many benefits. The condition was that he would turn a blind eye to the lot drawing. Yuan Longji was naturally happy to do this kind of thing that had no risk and could bring him benefit. Moreover, Li Daochong was originally a member of the Li family. If they wanted to clean up the family, that was their family's internal matter. Li Daochong was not promoted by Yuan Longji. No matter how good his results were, it was all Qian Changhai and Chu Qinyue's credit. It had nothing to do with him at all. Li Daochong, who was standing on the battle platform, naturally didn't know about the secret manipulation. However, even if Li Daochong knew that his opponent was specially arranged, it probably didn't matter. because with Li Daocheng's current strength, it didn't matter who his opponent was at all. Any tricks were meaningless when faced with absolute strength. Therefore, it didn't matter whether Li Daocheng knew or not. 3 minutes later, that very official female voice sounded. The second round of the battle began. Zhou Wenshan thought that Li Daocheng would open his eyes after the announcement, but who would have thought that Li Daocheng didn't have any intention of opening his eyes after the announcement. The spectators in the audience were also confused by Li Daocheng's action of closing his eyes. Could it be that this kid was going to fight Zhou Wenshan with his eyes closed? Wasn't this too arrogant? Even if Li Daocheng instantly killed Lian Fugue, Zhou Wenshan was an opponent on another level. Not only was his cultivation base one level higher, but he was also proficient in hidden weapons. How could he dodge a hidden weapon with his eyes closed? Zhou Wenshan sneered in his heart. With a flick of his hand, an invisible wave shot out. Li Daocheng didn't close his eyes to show off, nor did he look down on Zhou Wenshan. He was just using his telekinesis to perceive everything in the outside world. Li Daocheng didn't want to miss the opportunity to practice through actual combat. As soon as the prompt sounded, Li Daocheng immediately felt a strange fluctuation. He tilted his head slightly and heard the sound of something flying through the air. Something brushed past his ear and flew past. Could he dodge the shadow darts with his eyes closed? Chapter 112. Just like the battle with Lian Fugue, Li Daocheng turned around and left the stage without warning. The only difference was that Li Daocheng's eyes were still closed. With a thud, Zhou Wenshan fell to the ground. Li Daocheng wins. The prompt announced. The protective net disappeared. The duel ended inexplicably in front of everyone. Still, no one saw how Li Daocheng attacked. But this time, there were not only a group of new students in the audience, there were also many fans of the Great Illusionary Lands Arena and some experts who had reached the Qi gathering stage. The Rising Star Tournament's qualifiers were carried out using the Great Illusionary Lands Arena, so it naturally attracted a lot of fans. Li Daocheng used mysterious means to defeat his opponent in both battles. So many people thought that Li Daocheng must often enter the Great Illusionary Lands Arena to fight. His record was probably not bad. But when these fans checked Li Daocheng's ID information, they were all stunned. Li Daocheng had no record of his past record. Not only that, Li Daocheng's ID was blank. Except for his name, there was nothing else. In other words, he had never shown his face in the Great Illusionary Lands Arena. Li Daocheng's battle with Lian Fugue was his first battle in the Great Illusionary Land. At present, Li Daocheng's information showed that he had 2 wins and 0 losses, and nothing else. Unique skills, cultivation methods, winning percentage, they were all blank. Without more than 10 battles, the Great Illusionary Land would not give out analysis data. Li Daocheng's attack method was still a mystery. But there were still some experts who saw the clues, and finally someone posted an analysis, explaining how Li Daocheng attacked. Telekinesis attack, this word finally entered the public's eyes. Brother Jean, my nephew is actually a telekinesis cultivator, no wonder he's so mysterious. It seems that Zhou Wenshan's level is not enough. Li Tianxing stood beside Zhang Jintian and said with a worried face, Deacon Li, who do you want to be your nephew's next opponent? Zhang Jintian narrowed his eyes and asked, Brother Jean, I heard that Yi Feiyue once traveled together with Li Daocheng on the ghost-hunting planet. The two of them seem to have an unusual relationship. This lass of the Yi family is exceptionally talented, and her strength is close to Li Daocheng's. I think she's pretty good, Li Tianxing replied indifferently. Administrator Li, you have a good eye. Then arrange for Yi Feiyue to become Li Daocheng's next opponent, Zhang Jintian said with a smile. Brother Jean, let's forget about the preliminaries. If it's too obvious, it will be noticed. My nephew currently has no problem entering the semifinals, unless we arrange for Orson and Gu Chao as his next 3 opponents. However, the House of Oku and the Gu family are not stupid. If they get involved, it will be very troublesome. Let's let the spirit brain decide on the next 3 opponent. Li Tianqing looked cautious. Administrator Li is farsighted, but this Zhan is a little anxious. Then, according to Administrator Li, let's arrange Li Daocheng's next 3 opponents randomly, Zhan Zhentian said with a smile. Okay. Li Tianqing nodded and then turned around to leave. There was a sneaky look on his face, as if he was afraid that others would see him together with Zhan Zhentian. This detail made Zhan Zhentian very uncomfortable. At the same time, a trace of vigilance rose in his heart. In the eyes of the Li family, the Zhan family was nothing more than a hidden chess piece used to deal with Li Tianyang and his son. Once they were useless, they would be abandoned at any time. The current Li family was no longer the Li family of the past. Although Zhan Zhentian hated Li Tianyang, if Li Tianyang cooperated with him, he would absolutely not have any other thoughts. Li Tianyang was a man of his word, but Li Tianqing and Li Tianhe were different. These 2 guys weren't strong, but they were very sinister and cunning. How could a person who could even betray his own family have any morals to speak of? However, the Li family wasn't something that the Zhan family could afford to offend. Not to mention the 3 elders and the head of the family, Li Tianhe, just Li Tianqing was something that Zhan Zhentian couldn't deal with. Even if the Li family didn't have Li Tianyang, it was still a starving camel that was bigger than a horse. They were different from other families, having at least 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators. The Zhan family only had one, and he was a survivor of the older generation. Zhan Zhentian was only at the peak of the qi gathering stage, and had yet to break through to the foundation establishment stage. The consequences of falling out with the Li family would be very serious. It was possible that the Zhan family would be wiped out. The Li family could casually move a finger and the Zhan family would be consigned to eternal damnation. Zhan Zhentian was sitting on pins and needles, unable to dismount from a tiger. Although Zhan Zhentian looked relaxed, his heart was in turmoil. If Li Daocheng was a mental cultivator, it would be even more troublesome. The Federation attached great importance to mental cultivators because they were more adept at dealing with dark ghosts than cultivators. Dark ghosts' hallucinations and charms were greatly reduced against mental cultivators. Mental cultivators could also see through the dark ghost formations set up by dark ghosts, and mental cultivators had an innate advantage in controlling spirit brains. A spirit sequencer wasn't necessarily a mental cultivator, but a mental cultivator was definitely a spirit sequencer. Li Daocheng's growth was already out of control, and Zhan Zhentian had a bad feeling. Just being a mental cultivator was enough to make him a meteoric rise. Just as Zhan Zhentian was vexed, an old man slowly walked over. When Zhan Zhentian saw the old man, he immediately became vigilant and put away his distracting thoughts, putting on a nonchalant expression. The newcomer was none other than Qiu Xiong, who had gone to cause trouble for Li Tianyang as soon as Li Tianyang returned. 20 years ago, Qiu Xiong and Li Tianyang had formed a grudge over a sea mine. At that time, Li Tianyang had just entered Foundation Establishment, and Qiu Xiong was a veteran Foundation Establishment cultivator. Naturally, Qiu Xiong didn't care about Li Tianyang, who had just entered Foundation Establishment. At that time, the Qiu family was also a large family. In order to fight for the sea mine, Li Tianyang single-handedly occupied 3 islands near the mine. Qiu Xiong was furious and clashed with Li Tianyang. In that battle, Li Tianyang had single-handedly defeated 3 of the Qiu clan's top experts, including Qiu Xiong. The other 2 were heavily injured and left with hidden injuries, unable to recover from that setback. Qiu Xiong was also injured, but his foundation was not damaged. Li Tianyang then dealt a heavy blow to the Qiu family's business. Since then, the Qiu family began to decline rapidly. 2 years later, no one knew about the Qiu family of Blue Bay Star. It could be said that Li Tianyang was the main culprit behind the destruction of the Qiu family. Qiu Xiong wanted to destroy the Qiu family several times, but he didn't succeed. Li Tianyang's strength grew too fast. In the end, Qiu Xiong had no choice but to rely on the Gu family and become a steward of the Gu family. Qiu Xiong relied on the Gu family to avoid Li Tianyang's revenge and wait for an opportunity to take revenge. However, Li Tianyang's talent was far beyond his imagination. After a few years, he entered the Jindan stage and became the king of Blue Bay Star. Seeing that the Gu family wasn't so safe, Qiu Xiong had no choice but to temporarily put down his hatred and avoid the brunt of the attack. It wasn't until Li Tianyang was exposed that Qiu Xiong saw the hope of revenge. However, when facing Li Tianyang, Qiu Xiong still had a lingering fear and didn't dare to directly clash with Li Tianyang. However, Qiu Xiong had been monitoring Li Tianyang ever since he returned and accidentally found information about the Zhan family's assassins. "You're Zhan Zhentian?" Qiu Xiong asked as soon as he came up. Zhan Zhentian's heart slightly skipped a beat. He felt the powerful fluctuations coming from the old man and his eyes revealed a hint of fear. Even though Zhan Zhentian was the head of the family, he had no choice but to lower his arrogant head in front of a foundation establishment stage cultivator. "Junior has poor eyesight. May I know who Senior is?" Zhan Zhentian slightly lowered his head and asked respectfully. "Hee, you don't know this old man, but this old man knows you. Your Zhan family sure has guts. You actually dared to hire assassins to kill a student of Vast Heaven University?" Qiu Xiong's voice was low and his eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. Chapter 113. Zhan Zhentian felt that the whole world was spinning. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. Facing a real cultivator, even the awe-inspiring Zhan Zhentian felt pressured. "Senior, what do you mean?" Zhan Zhentian forced himself to play dumb. Zhan Zhentian, you don't have to play dumb in front of this old man. Who are the killers you hired? Who are the people you contacted? This old man knows all of them. This old man just needs to send 1,000 miles sound transmission to the Security Bureau to report and your Zhan family will be finished. Qiu Xiong's voice was low and his tone was full of threat. "Senior, this Zhan doesn't seem to know you. There should be no enmity between us." Zhan Zhentian carefully asked. The turbulence in his heart had calmed down a lot. If he wanted to report, why did he have to talk so much nonsense with him? This old man must have some other purpose. "Zhan Zhentian, you and I have no enmity between us, but now I have something on you. If you want to protect your family, you have to do something for me. After it is done, this old man will forget everything I know and will never mention it again." Qiu Xiong returned to the topic. "Senior, please speak." Zhan Zhentian's heart was relieved. "Well, I have a spirit-bursting pill here. Give it to your son and it can raise his cultivation level to the qi gathering stage in a short time. Then he can kill Li Daochong in the finals." Qiu Xiong said as he handed an orange pill to Zhan Zhentian. Taking the pill, Zhan Zhentian's heart thumped. The spirit-bursting pill could indeed raise the cultivation level of the person who took it by a large margin in a short time. But after taking it there would be sequelae. It would cause the person's spirit root to be completely fixed. From then on, the person could only reach the limit of the spirit-bursting pill. There would be no hope for a breakthrough in this life. "Why are you not willing?" Qiu Xiong frowned. Zhan Zhentian's lungs were about to explode, but he didn't dare to say anything. "Zhan Zhentian, if you don't want your Zhan family to disappear from Blue Bay Star, you'd better be sensible. Now call your son over and take it in front of me," Qiu Xiong said in a commanding tone. Zhan Zhentian did not dare to take the risk and had no choice but to call Zhan Honglai over. Qiu Xiong's hand moved, and Zhan Honglai was controlled by an invisible force. He opened his mouth, and Qiu Xiong grabbed the pill from Zhan Honglia's hand and flicked it into Zhan Honglia's mouth. Zhan Honglai coughed and swallowed the pill. "Dad, what's that?" Zhan Honglai wanted to vomit but couldn't. The pill melted in his mouth and flowed down his throat into his stomach. Qiu Xiong looked around. After confirming that no one was paying attention to them, he grabbed with both hands and his figure flashed. In the next second, the three of them appeared in a school building. At this time, there was a sea of people outside, but there was no one in the school building. Zhan Honglai suddenly felt the spiritual energy in his body explode and spread out. It was extremely painful. In less than a minute or two, Zhan Honglia's pain subsided a lot. Zhan Honglai was surprised to find that his cultivation had reached the early stage of the qi gathering and was approaching the middle stage of the qi gathering. What's going on? How did I enter the qi gathering stage? Zhan Honglai was confused. Zhan Zhentian sighed. As the saying goes, the evils brought on by oneself are the hardest to bear. With his son's talent, it shouldn't be a problem for him to reach the foundation establishment stage. After taking the spirit explosion pill, there was no hope for him to reach the foundation establishment stage. If he was lucky, he would only reach the peak of the qi gathering stage. Kid, this is a big gift from this old man. I guarantee that you'll enter the top 15 in this competition and successfully qualify for the joint examination of 100 schools. Why don't you thank me properly? Qiu Xiong boasted shamelessly. It's true. Zhan Honglia's eyes lit up. Ask your father if you don't believe me. Qiu Xiong smiled. Dad. Zhan Honglai looked at Zhan Zhentian. Yes. Zhan Zhentian's heart was bleeding, but he had no choice but to agree in the face of Qiu Xiong's pressure. Ha ha ha, that's great. Zhan Honglai couldn't help laughing, then saluted Qiu Xiong. Thank you, senior. Hee, if you want to thank this old man, then get rid of that kid Li Daochong, Qiu Xiong replied with a fake smile. Does senior have a grudge against Li Daochong? Zhan Honglai was slightly surprised. This old man and Li Tianyang have an irreconcilable enmity. Qiu Xiong's eyes flashed coldly. Senior, don't worry. Even if you don't say it, Junior will beat him to death in the arena, Zhan Honglai said fiercely. That's good. The third round of the preliminaries will begin soon. This old man has something to do, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, Qiu Xiong's figure disappeared. Zhan Zhentian couldn't see Qiu Xiong's movements at all. It was as if he disappeared into thin air. He was shocked. Just now, he wanted to fight back, but now it seemed like it was just wishful thinking. This old man was probably a master in the middle or even the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. Zhan Honglia's wristwatch rang, informing him that the next round was about to begin. Zhan Honglia's face revealed a smug smile. He entered the spiritual nexus's great illusionary land. Now, even if he faced Gu Chao, he wouldn't even blink. The third round of the preliminaries began. Li Daochong stood on the arena. This time, his opponent was a little girl. She looked very childish with 2 pigtails and was holding a lollipop in her hand. Li Daochong's eyes were tightly closed. He didn't have any intention of opening them, but everything around him was under his control. Big brother, I heard that you're very powerful. Can you go easy on me? I'm not asking for much. Let's fight to a draw, okay? The little girl licked her lollipop and replied in a childish voice. Li Daochong's eyebrows twitched, but he didn't reply. When the little girl spoke, there was a strange change in her aura. This made Li Daochong a little vigilant. Many of the spectators in the spectator stands revealed shocked expressions. Isn't that girl Helian Xiaoyi, the second daughter of the Helian family on the Red Sun Star? The reputation of the Red Sun Star's Helian family was much stronger than the 4 major families on the Blue Bay Star. It was said that the family's ancestor, Yuanying, was still alive. Yes, it is said that the girl entered the new star competition through the Department of Education. She participated in the first round. In fact, Helian Xiaoyi's cultivation has already surpassed the 10th level of the Qi refinement realm. Li Daochong has met his match. Let's see what he can do. I don't believe that this guy can still use telekinesis to attack. No matter how powerful Li Daochong is, there is a limit. Helian Xiaoyi is considered one of the best among the younger generation on the Red Sun star. Don't be fooled by her cute appearance. In fact, she is cunning and ruthless. The spectators were discussing animatedly. Because the battle platform was supported by a protective net, the sound from the outside was also blocked and couldn't be heard. Helian Xiaoyi looked at Li Daochong with a curious face. Big brother, I have a lollipop. Do you want it? Li Daochong still didn't reply. Big brother, you are so arrogant. I am talking to you and you don't even respond. I am so sad. Look at how handsome you are. Do you have a girlfriend? Helian Xiaoyi tilted her head and asked. Naturally, there was no response. As Helian Xiaoyi spoke, she finished her lollipop. She casually threw the stick of the lollipop away. Bang! Chapter 114. There was an uproar in the stands. Who would have thought that the lollipop that Helian Xiaoyi was eating was actually a hidden weapon? The battle platform was quickly surrounded by a thick fog, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Only some light tapping sounds could be heard. The spectators in the auditorium started to grumble. Especially those arena enthusiasts, they were complaining incessantly. Their purpose in coming here was to analyze Li Daochong's attack method. For some paranoid enthusiasts, it would be very uncomfortable if they didn't solve the mystery. Now that he was blocked by the fog, he couldn't see anything. It was as if he was looking at a sexy photo of a mysterious girl who was getting more and more revealing. Just as he was about to see the last part of the clouds and the sun, and about to peek at the last few naked photos of the mysterious girl, suddenly, someone covered their eyes and didn't let them see. For a screen-licking nerd, they were very anxious. Pudong. After a few seconds of silence, a sound was heard again. After a while, a notification sounded. Li Daochong wins. Soon, Li Daochong walked out of the gradually dissipating fog. In the center of the battle platform, Helian Xiaoyi was lying on her back. Her big eyes looked up in disbelief. She didn't lose consciousness, but her whole body was paralyzed and couldn't move. At the same time, the other battle platforms had different battle situations. Some battles were very intense. Both sides fought until the sky was dark and the earth was dark. Some battles were stable. Both sides faced each other and observed each other. They didn't make a move easily. There were also some that were like Li Daochong's situation. The battle ended in an instant. One side was extremely powerful, while the other side didn't have any power to resist. The most outstanding ones were naturally the 5 great experts recognized by Blue Bay Star. In the first round, they didn't win. In the second round, whoever met them was unlucky. Almost all of them won in one move. Gu Chao's Gu family's secret technique could blow his opponent away in one breath. No one was worthy of him moving a step. Okikin was even better. He had a giant stick on his shoulder and an apple in his mouth. But why did he eat in the great illusionary land? Just to taste the taste? This proud son of heaven had a very special hobby. At the start of the battle, Aokichuan only used his aura to frighten his opponents. No one dared to accept the challenge. Just by looking at that huge rod that weighed at least 1,000 kilograms, they completely lost the desire to fight. They directly admitted defeat without even fighting. Orson's 2 rounds of duels were a bit more comical. This kid always let others make the first move. Moreover, it was a close-range fight, and he definitely didn't dodge the first 3 punches. Whoever could knock him down in 3 punches would be considered the winner. No one dared to make a move against Orson. Seeing that his opponent didn't dare to make a move, Orson threatened that if they didn't agree, he would beat them into a pile of shit. It was useless even if they admitted defeat. In the end, after 2 rounds, Orson's opponents were all brute force type burly men. After bombarding Orson with 3 punches, then, there was no then. After the 3 punches, all the bones in their hands were shattered. Then, they were suppressed by Orson's aura and fell to the ground, unconscious. Compared to the 3 people above, Duan Yaoyao's method was obviously gentler. No matter what, he would take out his fists and use them. However, there was no one else who could knock his opponent unconscious with just the wind from his fists. Duan Yaojuan's voice sounded. Once the match started, he raised his hand and punched. No matter how far the distance was, he didn't move from his original position and punched in the opponent's direction. A buzzing sound echoed. Then, the opponent was sent flying and fell to the ground, motionless. Yi Feiyue's 2 rounds were a bit strange. She didn't seem to make any special moves, but her opponent fell. In this aspect, she had the same effect as Li Daochong. However, Yi Feiyue didn't use telekinesis attack. Yi Feiyue wasn't good at telekinesis. She used sword intent. The sword was in her hand, and the intent was in her heart. Before the sword came out, the intent came out first. The intent came out first, and the intent came out first. In the 2 rounds of opponents, Yi Feiyue only needed to use her intent to make her opponent lose the ability to fight. Except for the 5 great experts, the students from the superclasses were also very powerful. Lu Ming, Wang Yu, and Luo Dahai were the 3 representatives. Coincidentally, there was one each from Profound Heaven University, Tianhong University, and Yunlan University. Lu Ming's sun-piercing flying dagger was unpredictable and impossible to guard against. His opponent didn't even know what was going on before he was burnt by the thunder fire on the flying dagger and was defeated. Wang Yu's method was relatively more conventional. With a long sword in hand, she sent out a beam of sword chi that couldn't be avoided and directly sent her opponent flying. Luo Dahai was the top representative of the brute force school. His brute force was like a giant god. His huge body made people despair. With a height of 2.5 meters and a descendant of the giant race, he was born with godly strength. One punch from him could even turn a stone-horned bull into a pool of blood. When the opponent saw that his opponent was Luo Dahai, he immediately gave up and surrendered for the sake of the next round. As long as the green hills are there, there's hope. There was no need to bicker with a barbarian like Luo Dahai. Zhang Honglie's 2 matches were also clean and tidy. The art of collapsing sea relied on one's aura. He didn't even need to make a move to defeat his opponent. Zhang Honglie's strength could be said to have increased the most among all the people present. Although the video of him being brutally beaten by Li Daochong during the big exam was leaked, no one doubted his talent. Especially Zhang Honglie's 2 opponents were quite strong. The first one was a top 3 student from Tianhong University who was defeated in one move. The second one was even more impressive. He was a second-year senior from Yunlan University who didn't have to make a move in the first round. He was at the peak of the 10th layer of qi refining. Zhang Honglai didn't even need to make a move and only used his aura to cripple this senior. For a moment, everyone was shocked. That senior's strength was so strong that he could challenge someone above his level. A student at the 11th layer of qi refining might not be his match. However, he couldn't even make a move against Zhang Honglai. Just the pressure of his aura was enough to make that senior kneel on the ground and unable to move. From this, it could be seen that Zhang Honglie's strength had already made a qualitative leap compared to the end-of-term exam. Some people felt that Zhang Honglie's aura was the strongest among all the people present. Even Gu Chao was inferior to him. Speculations that Zhang Honglai had already broken through to the qi gathering stage quietly arose. After 3 rounds, it was gradually clear who was the strongest and who was the weakest among the 1,800-plus students. The strong were ridiculously strong, while the weak were so weak that they couldn't even withstand a single blow. The path of cultivation was just like this. Once you couldn't keep up with the pace, you would be left far behind. If you wanted to catch up in the future, unless you had some amazing fortuitous encounter or a sudden change in your spirit veins, the gap between you would only grow bigger and bigger until it was impossible to surpass. Soon, the 5 rounds of preliminaries were over. The students who won 5 rounds advanced to the next level. The students who lost 3 rounds in a row were directly eliminated. The students who didn't win 5 rounds or lost 3 rounds in a row didn't have to go through a rematch. There were only about 300 students in this group. There were 2 rematches. If you won all of them, you would advance. If you lost 1 round, you would be eliminated. The rules were just that cruel. If you didn't have absolute strength, then don't hold on to luck. Only those who had enough strength could enter the semifinals. The rematches also quickly ended. In the end, the number of students who entered the semifinals was greatly reduced. Out of the 1,800-plus students, only 400-plus students remained. The preliminaries were finished in the morning. There was a 2-hour break at noon, and the semifinals began in the afternoon. The rules of the semifinals were more or less the same as the preliminaries. The opponents were still decided by drawing lot. The only difference was that each person would only have 5 matches. The duration of each match was extended to 9 minutes, which was 3 times longer than the preliminaries. If you defeated your opponent within 3 minutes, you would be awarded 9 points. If you defeated your opponent within 3 minutes, you would be awarded 6 points. If you defeated your opponent within 6 minutes, you would be awarded 3 points. If you tied, you would be awarded 0 points. If you lost, you would be awarded -3 points, -6 points, and -9 points. Chapter 115. More than 400 students were competing for 30 spots, with only 1 out of 15 remaining. How fierce was the competition! However, after the preliminaries, there was a general conclusion about who could enter and who couldn't. Perhaps it couldn't be said to be 100% accurate, but the stronger ones had already locked in the top 10. At noon, the students who entered the semifinals seized the time to rest. They took all kinds of spirit pills and soaked in spirit liquids, allowing themselves to recover to their peak state as quickly as possible. The 5 experts were surrounded by the higher-ups of their respective clans, cheering them on and providing them with high-end spirit meat for lunch. All the contestants who were favored by their clans received the best service and were treated like treasures. Their lunch break couldn't be too extravagant. Heavens, is Gu Chao eating Sea King beast meat? Some students exclaimed as they looked enviously at the blue spirit meat delivered to Gu Chao's mouth by a beautiful maid. Don't make a fuss. Gu Chao eats this kind of high-grade spirit meat every day. It's Blue Bay Star's top-grade spirit meat, Kuan whale meat. It has the effect of evolving the body. Eating it every day without cultivating will allow one's body to reach the 4th layer of qi refining after a year, another student explained. On the other side, Zhang Honglai was sitting on an ice soul recliner. Behind him, a maid was massaging his temples. Beside him, another maid was constantly feeding him purple forest grape. Each grape was worth 10,000 Federation coins. It was a top-grade spirit fruit that could nourish one's spirit veins and replenish one's qi. Eating it every day without cultivating would increase one's qi. After 3 years, one could reach the 5th layer of qi refining. The reason why the disciples of wealthy clans could cultivate faster than ordinary people wasn't just because of their innate talent, but also because of the unlimited supply of resources. For the majority of cultivators, it was far beyond their reach. Yi Feiyue was even better. She was directly served by 2 elders of her clan. One was performing acupuncture on her, while the other was concocting a kind of spirit flower juice, which was then handed to Yi Feiyue to drink. Orson was more barbaric. He was holding an ice-fire unicorn's leg in his hand and was chewing on it with big bites, not caring about his table manners at all. From time to time, he would even spit out broken bones, and the sound of chewing was extremely loud. In short, the treatment of these fellows was beyond the reach of ordinary people. Many students could only watch enviously. Poverty had limited their imaginations. Today was an eye-opener. Among the many strong contestants, Li Daochong was the only exception. During the break, other than Lu Feng, Li Qingyao, and Ouyang Qian, the others all kept their distance. They did not receive any luxurious treatment, and were as light as a clear spring. Only a delicate, petite, and cute little maid handed an oversized lunchbox to Li Daochong. Li Daochong's current strength was estimated to be around the top 50. Even if he entered the top 30, it would not be enough to shock everyone. Although the identity of a psychic cultivator was very powerful, it would be hard to say if they were to face a truly powerful opponent. Telekinesis attacks could only be used to crush opponents weaker than oneself. Once one encountered an opponent of equal or stronger than oneself, telekinesis attacks were almost useless. Li Daochong's opponents in the preliminaries weren't very strong. They didn't have any magic weapons that could defend against psychic attack. If he met an opponent with a magic weapon that could defend against psychic attacks, Li Daochong would probably be killed in seconds. This was also the reason why Li Daochong wasn't favored. Many people also studied Li Daochong's performance on the ghost hunting planet. They mainly analyzed the two matches with Orson and Zhang Honglai. They found traces of Li Daochong's psychic attacks. It could be seen that Li Daochong relied on psychic attacks and knew a little martial art. There was nothing special about him. They all thought that Li Daochong's upper limit should be around the top 50 of the semifinals. After the meal, there was still half an hour of rest. Many female students were infatuated. They sat around the arena and whispered to each other, looking for powerful and noble young masters. This group of young girls fantasized that they would be fancied by someone and that they would be able to follow their husbands in the future. The Rising Star competition was organized by the Blue Bay Star Education Department. It was very important and was the top competition in Blue Bay Star. Whoever could stand out would definitely have a meteoric rise in the future. Moreover, most of the strong guys also had extraordinary families behind them. Situlan and Huang Yanhui were surrounded by a group of girls. In Dark Firmament University, these two girls were the most popular after Yi Fei. They were strong and had big families behind them. The Situ and Huang families were second only to the four big families in Tianyuan City. The two girls were students of the super class. Situlan ranked 6th and Huang Yanhui ranked 7th. In Tianyuan City, countless families wanted to marry the two girls. If the two families joined forces, the benefits in the future would go without saying. The most important thing was their genes. The two girls were strong. In the future, the probability of their descendants having 5 elements spirit meridians and mysterious heaven spirit meridians would greatly increase. Just now, Gu Chao looked at me. A girl sitting next to Situlan covered her face and was flattered. Come on, how is he looking at you? He's clearly looking at Yan Hui, okay? Another girl rolled her eyes at that girl. Lan Lan, who are you looking at? Why are you so engrossed? Huang Yanhui turned her head and saw Situlan looking in a certain direction and asked curiously. Situlan immediately retracted her gaze. Ah no. Huang Yanhui immediately looked and saw a young man wearing an old blue sweater under a tree outside the ring. He was holding a big lunchbox in his hand and wolfing it down as if there was no one around. From time to time, he would give a thumbs up to the little girl next to him and praise her. Lan Lan, are you looking at Li Daochong? Huang Yanhui recognized the young man at a glance. After the preliminaries, this guy could be considered a popular person. In addition to a few experts and a few students whose strength had increased by leaps and bounds, the most attention was probably Li Daochong. Although this guy's final evaluation wasn't very high, his future achievements wouldn't be too low. However, this guy's background was a bit complicated and he seemed to have many enemies. There were many people who wanted to see him make a fool of himself, including his original family. The Li family didn't like Li Tianyang and his son. It wasn't anything new. Don't you think that Li Daochong is a person worthy of respect? He was abandoned by his family and his father met with misfortune. He didn't have much talent and was never looked favorably upon by others. He grew up in ridicule and teasing, but he didn't become depressed because of this. he still maintained a passionate heart and silently cultivated, taking first place in the big test. I used to look down on him, but I don't know why, but I feel that I was very ignorant back then. Isn't this kind of young person worthy of respect? Sidulan suddenly said with emotion. Huang Yanhui looked at Sidulan in shock as if she didn't know her. Lan, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to Li Daochong? Sidulan shook her head slightly and said with a desolate expression, It's not up to me to decide whether I like him or not. Huang Yanhui was stunned for a moment before she thought of something and said, Lan, is your marriage set? Sidulan sighed and didn't answer, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. Huang Yanhui said in shock, Lan, what is your father thinking? He wants you to marry that guy who's worse than a beast? The lunch break quickly passed and a notification sounded from the podium. The students participating in the semi-finals immediately entered the great illusionary land. The spiritual brain had already arranged the random matchup. Over 400 students were immediately sent to their respective battle platforms once they entered the great illusionary land. The audience chose to watch the matches according to their preferences. Li Daochong's battle platform was filled to the brim with spectators. Everyone was very curious about cultivators. Most importantly, Li Daochong's opponent this time was Yi Feiyue. Chapter 116. Although Li Daochong is very strong, I'm afraid he will lose miserably against one of the 5 great experts, Yi Feiyue. Yeah, once a psychic cultivator loses their psychic attacks, they won't be far from death. Li Daochong was lucky in the preliminaries and didn't meet any strong opponents. But in the semi-finals, all his luck was used up. His first match is against Yi Feiyue. What a tragedy! Many students in the audience looked at Li Daochong with sympathetic eyes. In their eyes, this match was destined to end with Li Daochong's defeat. There were also some arena enthusiasts who were more excited. They could finally see how Li Daochong launched his telekinesis attack. This group of people had no interest in winning or losing. They only wanted to study battle technique. On the battle platform, when Li Daochong saw that his opponent was Yi Feiyue, he was more or less surprised. He hadn't seen her since they parted on the ghost-hunting planet. Li Daochong had a good impression of Yi Feiyue and already considered her a friend. In contrast to Li Daochong's calmness, Yi Feiyue's beautiful brows were flickering with fear. Ever since she came into contact with Li Daochong on the ghost-hunting planet, the most terrifying opponent in Yi Feiyue's heart was Li Daochong. Even if she had to face Gu Chao, Yi Feiyue didn't want to face Li Daochong because she couldn't see through him. Who was Li Daochong's master? What was the limit of his talismans? What kind of cultivation technique did he know? What kind of ultimate move did he have? Yi Feiyue was clueless. Like everyone else, she only knew that Li Daochong could use psychic attacks. She also knew that Li Daochong could make talismans and that his level was definitely above that of ordinary spirit sequencers. Yi Feiyue estimated that Li Daochong was at least a high-level spirit sequencer, which was already quite good on the blue base star. If Li Daochong had a strengthened level 4 talisman, Yi Feiyue would be very injured. How could she defend against a dozen of them at the same time? In case Li Daochong's master made a higher level talisman for him to defend himself, the power of a level 5 talisman would increase exponentially. Even a cultivator in the middle stage of the qi condensation realm wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from a level 5 talisman. Talismans were that powerful. The only flaw was that they were expensive and could only be used once. Level 5 talismans were already an astronomical figure. Level 6 talismans were the patent's patent. No matter how awesome a talisman was, it would be gone once it was used up. Using a talisman was not burning money, but using a missile to blow up a vault. Match. Yi Feiyue's heart skipped a beat and the corner of her eyes twitched. She looked at Li Daochong's clean face and saw a faint smile appear on it. Yi Feiyue felt a chill run down her spine. She vigilantly looked at Li Daochong to see if he had a talisman in his hand. She poured all of her spirit energy into her magic robe and activated the protective shield. She was afraid that Li Daochong would attack her with telekinesis and she would fall down without knowing what happened. "Come on, Yi Feiyue," Li Daochong said as he cracked his neck. "I admit defeat," Yi Feiyue suddenly said without warning. "What?" Everyone in the audience stared at Yi Feiyue, wondering if they were hallucinating. Li Daochong smiled indifferently. "Are you sure?" Yi Feiyue shrugged. "I'm sure. I can't beat you anyway. Wasting my energy will only affect the rest of the match. I might as well save my energy to deal with the others." Li Daochong raised his eyebrows and asked, "How do you know you can't beat me if you don't try?" Yi Feiyue's eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. "A woman's intuition." "Ah." Li Daochong laughed heartily when he heard the answer. He turned around and walked down the platform. Li Daochong wins and gets 9 points. The more than 10,000 spectators in the audience were baffled. No one could understand why Yi Feiyue would admit defeat. What the hell? The process and the result were all wrong. In the first round of the semifinals, no one expected that the first match to end would be between Li Daochong and Yi Feiyue. Li Tianqing sat in the audience with a gloomy face. He never dreamed that Yi Feiyue, who was specially arranged to fight Li Daochong, would actually admit defeat in front of everyone without any self-respect. Yi Feiyue was recognized as one of the top 5 young experts of Blue Bay Star, and the only woman. What the hell was she thinking? Li Tianqing gnashed his teeth in hatred. The haze in Zhang Zhentian's heart became even thicker. Yi Feiyue actually admitted defeat in front of Li Daochong. What kind of situation was this? "Deacon Li, who do you want to arrange as Li Daochong's next opponent?" Zhang Zhentian sent a message to Li Tianqing. "Not for the time being. Let's see if this kid can enter the finals. We'll talk about it when the real battle starts. It's not that easy to seriously injure someone in the great illusionary land," Li Tianqing quickly replied. Zhang Zhentian put away his wristwatch. His face was gloomy and uncertain. He then sent a long message to several elders in his family. After sending this message, Zhang Zhentian logged out of the spiritual network and was about to go back. However, a wave of pressure hit him in the face. Not far away, Qiu Xiong's turbid eyes were faintly looking at him. Zhang Zhentian was about to get up but immediately stopped and sat back in the VIP seat. The second round of the semifinals. Li Daochong's opponent was a student of the Cloud Mist University's superclass called Luo Feng. He was at the peak of the 10th layer of the Qi refining stage and had the fire spirit pulse of the 5 elements. As soon as the match started, Luo Feng put up a protective net. Li Daochong tried to use his telekinesis to attack, but the result was that his telekinesis hit an invisible barrier and could not penetrate it. Even if Li Daochong used all his strength to break through the barrier, the effect of his telekinesis attack would be greatly reduced. Luo Feng felt that the barrier blocked some kind of invisible attack. He smiled sinisterly and said, "Hee, Li Daochong, your good days are over. Do you really think that you can rely on your telekinesis attack to be unparalleled in the world? Then you're gravely mistaken. This robe I'm wearing is called Bright Shield. It's a middle-grade robe of the human rank. Whether it's physical or magical attacks, it can resist telekinesis attack. Li Daochong, if you meet me, you'd better admit defeat. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death. I'll make sure that you can't fight in the next match. How about it? I'll give you 3 seconds to consider whether you want to admit defeat or not." Li Daochong curled his lips and said, "You talk too much nonsense." Luo Feng's face turned cold. "Since you refuse a toast and insist on drinking a forfeit, then don't blame me." Swish! The sound of something breaking through the air. Li Daochong gently tossed his hand, and a red light was emitted from his hand. Hidden weapon? Many people in the audience stared at the light beam without blinking. They wanted to see through it, but unfortunately, it was too fast and they couldn't see it clearly. The light beam passed through the air and instantly turned into a fireball. It was a talisman. Luo Feng raised the wind and fire long blade in his hand and aimed at the fireball. His face was full of contempt. How could a mere fire talisman hurt him? I'm a fire spirit vein of the 5 elements, so I'm immune to fire attacks. Li Daochong, you're really an idiot. Didn't you read the information before the match? Luo Feng cursed in his heart. Bang! The moment the long blade hit the fireball, there was a dull sound. Whoosh! Flames rose and rushed towards Luo Feng. What? Luo Feng was shocked. The fireball formed by the fire talisman was far more powerful than he imagined. The flames were close to the true fire realm. Luo Feng instantly felt the threat of death. The fire spirit vein in his body released fire spirit chi to resist the flames. But he couldn't resist at all. Luo Feng flew backwards in the next second. With a bang, he hit the protective net and bounced back onto the platform. His body was charred black. His body trembled and emitted green smoke. Chapter 117. What? Someone in the audience immediately stood up with a confused look on his face. Luo Feng had won 5 consecutive matches in the preliminaries. None of his opponents could take more than 3 of his move. Luo Feng's 5 elements Spiritual Pulse and Fire Spiritual Pulse were also extremely aggressive attribute. Needless to say, his strength was ranked in the top 10 of Yunlin University. Such a powerful person was actually killed by a talisman. What the hell? Shameless. Despicable, too despicable. Shameless. Li Daochong, this kid, really has a lot of tricks. Telekinesis attack is already very wretched, but he still used a talisman. How can Li Daochong's talisman be so powerful? Do you still need to ask? This kid must have used telekinesis attack. He doesn't know anything. He must have a life-saving trump card on him. That fire talisman's power is not small. It's most likely a level 4 fire talisman. There was a lot of discussion in the audience, but most people looked at Li Daochong with a little more disdain in their eyes. Li Daochong won, but there was a suspicion that he used tricks. He never confronted his opponent head-on and used all his secret move. It gave people a feeling that he had an unfair advantage. Although the cultivators had a lot of tricks up their sleeves, in a competition where competition was the main focus, the spectators preferred the courageous and fearless duels. Li Daochong's way of winning was really not very glorious. At least in the eyes of most people, such a way was meaningless. Talismans could always be obtained as long as one had money. What kind of ability was that? Luo Feng is immune to fire attack. Why couldn't he even resist Li Daochong's fire talisman? Someone asked curiously. Nonsense, from the power of the fire talisman, it must be a level 4 fire talisman. No matter how powerful Luo Feng is, he is only a chi refinement cultivator. How can he resist a level 4 fire talisman? If it is a well-made level 4 fire talisman, it can reach the level of pseudo-true fire, which is close to a level 5 fire talisman. Of course Luo Feng can't resist it. A competition enthusiast next to him explained. In a short time, the news that Li Daochong carried a level 4 fire talisman spread. Li Daochong, who wasn't thought highly of in the first place, had his evaluation lowered by another level. Powerful talismans weren't easy to obtain. 1 or 2 was the limit. Relying on talismans wouldn't be enough to last until the end. Even against an opponent like Luo Feng, he had started to use talismans. It was clear that Li Daochong no longer had any trump cards. At this moment, many people finally understood why Yi Feiyue had admitted defeat in the first match against Li Daochong. She had probably found out through some channels that Li Daochong had a powerful talisman on him and was unwilling to consume it. In the great illusionary land, everyone had the same skills and equipment as they did in real life. Similarly, all the skills and equipment had the same attributes as they did in real life. For example, if you had one talisman on you, you wouldn't have another after using it. If you had 2 talismans, you could use 2 talismans. A talisman as powerful as the one Li Daochong had used was shockingly valuable, so he wouldn't have too many on him. He estimated that 2 would be the limit. Li Daochong didn't care about what other people thought or analyzed. The reason he had used talismans against Luo Feng was just to experiment. Li Daochong hadn't used the level 4 strengthened fire talisman since he had created it, so he didn't know how powerful it was. The cost of experimenting in real life was too great. Li Daochong had spent 200,000 Federation coins to create such a level 4 strengthened fire talisman. He also had to spend time and effort to construct a precise spirit sequence. All of this could be converted into money. The cost would be at least 100,000 coins. In other words, the cost of creating such a talisman was 300,000 coins. Although Li Daochong had some money now, he hadn't reached the point where he could casually burn 300,000 Federation coins. With the help of the Great Illusionary Land, he could test the talisman for free and see how powerful it was. Li Daochong was very satisfied with the result. To be able to kill a cultivator like Luo Feng in an instant, the talisman's power had exceeded his expectations. Li Daochong had created a total of 8 level 4 strengthened talismans, 2 fire talismans, 2 ice talismans, 2 golden bell talismans, and 2 thunder talismans. Li Daochong had spent half of the money he had earned during this period on talismans, so he didn't have much left. However, self-made talismans were much cheaper than buying them. Thus, the outside world's prediction that Li Daochong only had 2 powerful talismans was completely wrong. After 2 rounds of the semifinals, the students who had obtained 18 points didn't count. There were only about 20 people. 18 points in 2 rounds was a perfect score. Among the 5 great experts, Yi Feiyue had the least points. She had 0 points, so 1 win and 1 loss cancelled each other out. The other 4 great experts had defeated their opponents with overwhelming superiority. The next 3 rounds were completed in the blink of an eye. Li Daochong's next 3 opponents weren't very strong and didn't receive much resistance. 2 of them were defeated with telekinesis attacks, while the last one was defeated with a talisman. Li Daochong had defeated all his opponents in a flash. After 5 rounds, he had obtained 45 points. However, due to Li Daochong's use of talismans as an auxiliary means, the number of matches he had participated in had greatly decreased. Who didn't know how to use talismans? There was nothing to study. In addition, Li Daochong's luck in drawing lots was very good. His opponents weren't very strong. The number of people watching the last 2 rounds of the competition was actually less than 100. Some people on the spiritual net predicted that Li Daochong would definitely enter the finals. However, none of his opponents in the finals were easy to deal with. All of them were the top geniuses of Blue Bay Star. Whether it was cultivation base, strength, or equipment, they would all be on another level. Li Daochong would be beaten back to his original state after entering the finals. He would probably be easily defeated by anyone. Li Daochong, on the other hand, was happy and relaxed to be looked down upon and ignored. On the contrary, being stared at by countless pairs of eyes made him feel uncomfortable. In the end, the top 10 were easily determined. All 10 of them had obtained 45 points. Apart from Li Daochong, the other 9 were Gu Chao, Ao Kechuan, Orson, Zhang Honglai, Duan Yao, Lu Ming, Wu Yu, Luo Dahai, and Li Tianyao. Out of the remaining 20 spots, 7 of them had been determined. Their points weren't too controversial, but there was no way to determine the remaining 13 spots. This was because there were 37 students who had the same final point. Yi Feiyue was also among them. She had suffered a loss because she had admitted defeat against Li Daochong in the first round. In the following 4 matches, she had won all of them in one move, but she had only obtained 27 points. These 37 students could only participate in additional matches to determine the final 13 spot. In the end, Yi Feiyue was the first to obtain a spot with an overwhelming advantage. The remaining 12 spots were only decided when it was close to evening. The semi-finals ended when the sun was about to set. After a night's rest, the finals would be held in the center of Xian University's plaza. The remaining 30 students would have a real showdown with real swords and spears. In the evening, the Department of Education would allocate funds to arrange food and lodging, while Xian University would provide the venue. The participating students were not allowed to leave the university before the end of the competition. In the evening, Li Daochong didn't go to the high-end dormitory arranged for him. Instead, he stayed in the despair training room to meditate and adjust his breathing. Li Daochong felt very at ease here. The night passed. Li Daochong opened his eyes and took out old Devil Zhang's upgraded Zamadeo. The blade's body was covered in a layer of faint green light. This was the radiation wave of the green fire hidden within the blade. Li Daochong smiled faintly. He had already renamed this saber. It was called Azure Rainbow. Chapter 118. The square of Xian University was packed with tens of thousands of people. Today was the final showdown of the new star competition. After the preliminaries and the semi-finals, the remaining 30 students were the most outstanding representatives of this generation of Blue Bay Star. Their strength had been tested, and their future achievements wouldn't be too low. The worst of them should be able to become a cultivator at the peak of the Qi gathering stage. Most of them could reach the foundation establishment stage and become cultivators in the true sense of the word. They would become the pillars of the Shenghua Federation, and in the future, when resisting the invasion of the Hades, they would shine brightly. All the major cultivation companies on Blue Bay Star sent people to observe, and so did the major families. The top 15 of the 30 students would represent Blue Bay Star in the joint examination of 100 schools. Being able to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools meant that you would be able to step out of the small Blue Bay Star into the vast world and develop your grand plans. You might not necessarily achieve anything, but your horizons would be very different. After obtaining a place, the Department of Education would provide every student who was about to participate with abundant cultivation resources before the start of the joint examination of 100 schools. They would fully support the students' breakthrough. The joint examination of 100 schools was of extraordinary significance to the entire Blue Bay Star. Take Zhao Wujin for example. His family wasn't a major one. Before he participated in the joint examination of 100 schools, his cultivation resources were very limited and his status wasn't valued. However, after he became famous, his status changed dramatically, and his cultivation resources were endless. Not only was there a monthly allowance from the Federation, but there were also many gifts from the major families to express their goodwill. With a military position, he was already a non-commissioned officer with the rank of second lieutenant. As long as he joined the army, he would immediately be able to command a platoon of the cultivation army and guard the border. It would be a little hard, but his cultivation resources would increase exponentially. His military position might not be very high, but his status would leap to become an existence revered by tens of thousands of people. His family would also receive a lot of benefits and courtesy. If Zhao Wujin could achieve military merits, the Zhao family could even leap to become the 5th major family on Blue Bay Star. The reason why the 4 major families of Blue Bay Star had such a lofty status and were powerful was because there were people in their families who held important positions in the military. The reason why the Li family was able to become the first of the 4 great clans was because of Li Tianyang's bravery and fearlessness in the army and his outstanding military achievements. In the Shenghua Federation, the status of soldiers was the highest. Because of them, the safety of the vast starfield and billions of people was guaranteed. In vast Blue University's public square, there were 3 round arenas that were surrounded by a sea of people. 30 students were waiting in a designated area, waiting for their names to be announced. Since there were 3 arenas, 3 battles could be held at the same time. The opponents of the 30 students were no longer drawn by lot. Instead, they would fight based on their ranking. The 10 students who were tied for first place in the semifinals would be chosen by the last 10 students. The 10 students who were ranked in the middle would have a cross match. Simply put, the 11th would fight against the 20th, the 12th would fight against the 19th, the 13th would fight against the 18th, and so on. In the last 10 students, the ones ranked at the top would be the first to choose their opponent. The 30th ranked student could only fight with the remaining students in the end. This rule for the first round was also a continuation of the semifinals, allowing the students who performed outstandingly in the semifinals to have a preferential opportunity. Although the top 10 students were said to have been chosen, their opponents were the weaker ones among the 30 students. After the rule was set, the happiest person was Zhao Tanxing, who was ranked 21st. He was the Zhao family's second rising star after Zhao Wujin. Although he wasn't as strong as Zhao Wujin, he was still pretty good. He was now a sophomore and had already reached the 11th level of qi refining. He was taking advantage of the fact that he wasn't even 20 years old to participate in this hegemony tournament. Based on Zhao Tanxing's talent, he shouldn't have been like this. However, after Zhao Wujin achieved good results in last year's 100 schools joint examination, the Zhao family received a lot of benefits and an abundance of cultivation resources. There weren't many people in the Zhao family. Among the direct descendants, there were only Zhao Wujin and Zhao Tanxing in this generation. Zhao Wujin had the support of the school and the federation, so the majority of the resources the Zhao family received were naturally used on Zhao Tanxing. This allowed his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds in the past half year, but most of the credit was due to the cultivation resources piled up regardless of the cost. If it was just regular cultivation, it would be pretty good if Zhao Tanxing could reach the 7th level of qi refining. Of course, his own conditions weren't too bad either. He was still teachable, but there was still a gap between him and the geniuses. Zhao Tanxing hadn't lost in the preliminaries and had only tied once in the semifinals. His magic robe was a high-grade human-tier magic treasure and his flying frost sword was a mid-grade human-tier magic treasure with the addition of ice and snow. In addition, Zhao Tanxing also had a winning treasure that he hadn't used yet. He was preparing to use it to deal with the Great Five or other powerful opponent. It was a well-made level 4 Wind Blade Talisman. This talisman was made by a master and was half a level higher than ordinary level 4 talismans. This Wind Blade Talisman was sold for at least 500,000 Federation credit. It was a gift from a cultivation company that wanted to rope in Zhao Wujin. A level 4 talisman naturally had no use for a qi-gathering expert like Zhao Wujin, so Zhao Wujin gave it to Zhao Tanxing to protect himself. After all, among the Zhao family's younger generation, only he and Zhao Tanxing were around 20 years old. The others were either old or young. The development of the Zhao family in the next 10 years would depend on him and Zhao Tanxing. In fact, Zhao Wujin alone could make the family skyrocket in a very short period of time. However, at that time, he wouldn't be on the Blue Bay Star very often, so the family needed someone to oversee it. As the big brother, Zhao Wujin also wanted to help this little brother Zhao Tanxing. In the future, he would let him oversee the family so that he wouldn't have to worry about the future. Zhao Tanxing didn't disappoint Zhao Wujin. He overcame all the difficulties and smoothly entered the finals. He even obtained a good ranking of 21. As the first person to pick a student in the top 10 as his opponent, Zhao Tanxing's heart was already blooming with joy. Zhao Wujin was currently the #1 person in Xiansong University. Even the Blue Bay Star Education Department treated him like a treasure. It wasn't strange for him to know the rules of the finals in advance. Last night, Zhao Wujin had already informed Zhao Tanxing of the news and gave him a small suggestion. Among the top 10, don't even think about Gu Chao. He definitely wouldn't be able to beat him. Yi Feiyue didn't enter the top 10, so there was no need to think about the other 4 experts. Among the remaining 6, Zhao Wujin told Zhao Tanxing not to pick Lu Ming or Luo Dehai because they definitely wouldn't be able to beat him. Originally, Zhao Wujin thought that Zhang Honglai was one of the possible opponents. However, after seeing Zhang Honglia's performance in the semifinals, he was somewhat puzzled. He couldn't see through Zhang Honglai, so he was also eliminated. The remaining 3 people were Li Daochong, Li Tianyao, and Wu Yu. Zhao Wujin's suggestion to Zhao Tanxing was that Li Daochong was the weakest, but he might be more cunning. Wu Yu was the easiest to deal with, and Li Tianyao was the strongest, but Zhao Tanxing's flying frost sword had a restraining effect on him. No matter which one he chose, Zhao Tanxing had a high chance of winning. As for which one he chose, Zhao Wujin only said that Zhao Tanxing could decide for himself. In his eyes, they were all the same. Zhao Tanxing stood on the first circular stage with a light smile on his face. Zhao Tanxing, who do you choose as your first opponent? The lecturer in charge of the first stage asked. Chapter 119. When Zhao Tanxing confidently pointed at Li Daochong, the latter's face revealed a slight smile, as if he had already expected this. According to the reputation of the top 10 students, Li Daochong was definitely the weakest. However, the other 9 students who had not yet made their choice revealed a regretful expression. The easiest opponent had been chosen by Zhao Tanxing, so they could only choose someone else. The student ranked 30th had an extremely ugly expression. There was no need to even think about it. There was absolutely no one who would choose Gu Chao as their opponent. His opponent was definitely Gu Chao. The tens of thousands of spectators below the stage also revealed an expected expression. Among the top 10 students, the easiest one to deal with was definitely Li Daochong, a guy who only knew telekinesis attacks and talismans. In a high-level battle, these attacks would be useless. For an expert, an opponent with only one ability was really too easy to deal with. With a good defensive robe, Li Daochong's telekinesis attacks would be completely ineffective. As for talismans, although they were powerful, the price to obtain them was too high, so there would not be too many of them. Moreover, talismans were not impossible to deal with. In front of a strong opponent, unless the talisman's level was very high, its effect would be reduced. If Li Daochong used a fire talisman to deal with Luo Feng, if it was used against Orson, the latter would be able to repel the fire talisman with a single punch. Unless Li Daochong had a level 5 talisman. A level 5 talisman's price was over 1,000,000 Federation coins. Who could afford it? Therefore, Zhao Tanxing choosing Li Daochong as his opponent was clearly within the expectations of most people. This time Li Daochong is finished. A student below the stage gloated. Isn't that so? Telekinesis attacks and talismans are completely useless in front of this group of geniuses who have even touched the Qi gathering stage. Relying on opportunistic means to enter the finals, Li Daochong can be considered as a lucky bastard. If I had a few level 4 talismans, I could also enter the finals. The problem is that you don't, ha ha ha. Many of the students below the stage felt that it was unfair for Li Daochong to enter the finals. In their opinion, Li Daochong's strength was not necessarily stronger than theirs. Wasn't he just relying on a few talismans and some secret techniques? Li Tianyang must have used some kind of method to let Li Daochong have these things. Otherwise, how could such a guy enter the finals? In short, no one thought that Li Daochong's strength was very strong. He was just relying on himself. Yuan Longji smiled as he sat on the spectator stand. Zhao Tanxing was a rising star that he had personally taught, and his strength had improved by leaps and bounds in the past half a year. Zhao Tanxing was one of Yuan Longji's favorite students. Of course, the reason why Yuan Longji promoted Zhao Tanxing was because of Zhao Wujin. Principal Yuan, Zhao Tanxing has been cultivating under your personal supervision for the past 6 months, right? Lien Bin asked in a fawning manner. Yes, Tanxing has improved tremendously in the past half a year. I underestimated him before. Now that he's at the 11th level of qi refining, his spiritual roots have already appeared. He's not far from the qi condensation stage. Yuan Longji replied with satisfaction. Principal Yuan personally taught him, so he's naturally a level higher than the other lecturers. Even I feel inferior. I remember that Zhao Tanxing was only at the 8th level of qi refining half a year ago. In such a short period of time, he has improved so much. Besides his own hard work in cultivation, the key is Principal Yuan's personal guidance. Lien Bin feels inferior when it comes to educating people. In the future, I'll have to ask Principal Yuan for guidance. Yuan Longji was pleased to hear this. The reason why he had promoted Lien Bin to the top class lecturer was because of this guy's sweet mouth. Hee, Teacher Lien, you don't have to feel inferior. Your ability is also not bad. I think you have a high chance of passing the advancement test next year. Yuan Longji laughed. Haha, Teacher Lien, you don't have to feel inferior. I'll have to ask Principal Yuan to promote me. As soon as Lien Bin heard this, his eyes overflowed with joy. The advancement test that was held every 3 years was an extremely important period for all cultivators in the education industry. Lien Bin was currently a first-class lecturer. If he got promoted, he would become a special class lecturer and reach Chu Qinyue's level. If he got promoted again, he would become an associate professor. On the other side of the grandstand, a group of family higher-ups were sitting in the VIP seats, talking animatedly. Apart from the 4 great families, the Zhao family was currently in the limelight on Blue Bay Star. Because of Zhao Wujin, there were already cultivation companies on third-class cultivation planets that had reached an agreement with the Zhao family to develop mineral resources on Blue Bay Star and the surrounding star field. As long as Zhao Wujin could enter the top 10, or even the top 5, in this year's 100 Schools Alliance, then the Zhao family would very likely become the 5th great family on Blue Bay Star in a very short period of time. Many small families were already shamelessly trying to curry favor with the Zhao family. The blatant behavior of the Lien family and the Tian family was already outrageous. A girl from the Lien family directly threw herself at a famous general of the Zhao family in public, flirting coquettishly. She couldn't wait for the general to take her home right now, even if she was just a maid. The status of the direct descendants of the Zhao family was now different. In a small family like the Lien family, even the daughter of the patriarch was out of reach. It was already a very good choice to marry a famous general. Today, the Qiao family was also invited to sit in the VIP seat. Qiao Shima's eyes had never moved from Li Daochong since he appeared. Yesterday, Shinhua had uploaded a letter to Qiao Shima on the spiritual nexus, asking her to meet him on the spiritual nexus. After the meeting, Shinhua warned Qiao Shima to be careful of Zhan Honglai. Qiao Shima didn't know why Shinhua suddenly said that, but when she learned from Shinhua that there was something wrong with the glass of red wine that Zhan Honglai had offered her at the birthday party that day, she was immediately stunned. The family tested that the spilled red wine had dissolved the doll pill in it. There was no need to be so careful at a birthday party. No one would care about spilled red wine. However, Shinhua's brother, Dingbang, had a polar ice lion hound. This guy liked to drink. After the party was over, it somehow sneaked into the banquet hall to look for wine. When it smelled the wine on the ground, it was so excited that it licked the ground clean. Then it was a tragedy. Soon, the polar ice lion hound became motionless as if it was possessed. Its eyes were blank. It would only respond when you asked it to do something. Otherwise, it would lie on the ground in a daze. And Dingbang found it strange. He checked the surveillance video and then took the blood of the polar ice lion hound for testing. However, there was no result. When he returned to the red sun planet, Dingbang felt that something was wrong. He took the blood to the family laboratory and continued testing. He also specially invited a master alchemist to help. Finally, the results came out a few days ago. The wine contained the doll pill, a very vicious ecstasy. After the test results came out, and Xinhua and his sister recalled Li Daocheng's various actions that night. It was only then that they realized that Li Daocheng was simply trying to protect Qiao Shima. But how did Li Daocheng know that the glass of red wine was drugged? And Xinhua and his sister could not figure it out. However, Li Daocheng's mysteriousness became even more confusing in the eyes of the brother and sister. They were afraid that the mighty person behind this man was much more powerful than they had imagined. And Xinhua saw that Qiao Shima did not seem to like Li Daocheng very much that night. Although the two were engaged, there seemed to be some misunderstanding. Qiao Shima did not seem to know that Li Daocheng was extraordinary. It was a waste of God's gift to ignore such a powerful person. As a good friend, and Xinhua did not want Qiao Shima to miss anything. After thinking about it, he decided to tell Qiao Shima about this matter. Looking at Li Daocheng with a faint smile on his face in the ring, Qiao Shima's beautiful eyes rippled. Chapter 120. Qiao Shima stared at Li Daocheng in the ring with mixed feelings. She had regretted bringing Li Daocheng over after Xinua's birthday party. Recalling her attitude towards Li Daocheng that day, Qiao Shima was ashamed. Li Daocheng, come on, Qiao Shima murmured to herself. Sister, what did you just say? Qiao Shima, who was sitting next to Qiao Shima, asked curiously. Nothing. Qiao Shima blushed and prevaricated. Really? Qiao Shima's pretty face was full of doubt. While the two women were talking, their father, Qiao Sanlang, came over with a young man in a Taoist robe. The two sisters knew this young man. He was a senior manager of the Bay Sea Refining Company, who had business dealings with the Qiao family. His name was Lin Shaoqing. In addition to holding an important position in the largest refining company in Bay Sea, Lin Shaoqing was also a direct descendant of the Lin family, the #1 family in Bay Sea. Both his identity and background were quite profound. Compared to the Qiao family, he was a giant. Qiao Shima and Qiao Shima frowned when they saw Qiao Sanlang. They wanted to avoid this scumbag of a father. If Qiao Sanlang's name hadn't been on the invitation list, Qiao Shima wouldn't have let him come. Shima, why don't you get up and greet Mr. Lin? Qiao Sanlang ordered as soon as he came over. No matter how bad Qiao Sanlang was, he was still her father. Even if Qiao Shima was gnashing her teeth in hatred, there was nothing she could do. She could only get up and greet Lin Shaoqing before shaking hands. Lin Shaoqing looked at Qiao Shima with a trace of yearning in his eyes. Shima, I heard that you are divorced. What? Qiao Shima and Qiao Shima were stunned. Only a few people in the family knew about it, and it wasn't announced to the public. However, the two women soon found clues from Qiao Sanlang's playful expression. The two women glared at Qiao Sanlang, who said indifferently, so be it. Why don't you let people know? Li Daocheng is not worthy of you. You. Qiao Shima was so angry that her delicate body trembled. Qiao Shima had nothing to say to this father of hers. Her face turned cold as she sat back in her seat, ignoring Lin Shaoqing's presence. Daughter, I'm doing this for your own good. You won't have a future if you marry that kind of person. Compared to Mr. Lin, Li Daocheng is just a pile of sh*t. However, it's wise for you to leave him. Mr. Lin has always been interested in you and doesn't mind your divorce. As long as you agree to the marriage proposal from the Lin family, 1/3 of the port business in Wanhai City will be managed by the Qiao family. Qiao Sanlang boasted shamelessly. Qiao Shima ignored Qiao Sanlang and focused on Li Daocheng in the ring. Lin Shaoqing didn't really care about Qiao Shima's attitude. It was normal for a beauty to have a little temper. It would be boring if she didn't have any personality. However, Qiao Shima was staring at Li Daochong in the arena with a certain emotion in her eyes, which made Lin Shaoqing very unhappy. "Young Master Lin, you're here to watch the competition too?" At this time, a few rich young masters who had business dealings with the Lin family saw Lin Shaoqing and came over to greet him. The Lin family might not be as powerful as the four major families, but their financial resources were better. After all, they were the dominant family in one high city and monopolized the entire city's business. These rich young masters naturally wanted to curry favor with Lin Shaoqing. They also heard what Xiao Sanlang said just now. Pleasing people was also a skill. These rich young masters naturally knew that Lin Shaoqing wanted Qiao Shima. Everyone knew about Qiao Shima's situation. Her marriage with Li Daochong was one of the hottest gossip in Tianyuan City a few months ago. When the two really got married, many people's jaws dropped. However, recently there were rumors that Qiao Shima and Li Daochong had divorced. There was no smoke without fire. Moreover, no matter how they looked at it, Li Daochong was not worthy of Qiao Shima. It was normal for him to be dumped. Since Lin Shaoqing wanted Qiao Shima, the rich young masters naturally knew how to persuade him. "Young Master Lin, if not for your age, you would have been in the top 50 if you participated in the competition. You should be in the middle stage of the Qi gathering now, right?" Another rich young master said casually. These words touched Lin Shaoqing's heart. He laughed and said, "I was lucky to break through to the middle stage of the Qi gathering a year ago." "Amazing, young Master Lin is only 25 years old now, right?" The rich young master showed an exaggerated expression. "I'll be 25 in 3 months. Lin Shaoqing inadvertently looked at Qiao Shima as he spoke, but the latter seemed to have not heard or seen anything. She just looked at the tall and thin figure in the arena in a daze. "Amazing, young Master Lin. If I had half of your talent, I would thank the heavens," the rich young master praised. Young Master Lin's talent goes without saying. If he participated in the competition, someone like Li Daochong, who only knows how to use talismans, would not be able to take a single blow. Young Master Lin aside, that kid Zhao Tanxing can beat Li Daochong into a pig's head. Just wait for Li Daochong to be humiliated. The rich young masters talked one after another, bragging that Lin Shaoqing was better than Gu Chao. As for Li Daochong, he was not even worth mentioning. Qiao Shima turned a deaf ear to them. She was too lazy to pay attention to this group of rich young masters. She just let them say whatever they wanted. She activated the soundproofing effect on her Daoist robe and heard nothing. Qiao Shima could not take it anymore. The more she heard, the angrier she became. Li Daochong was her brother-in-law and had saved her on the ghost hunting planet. Regardless of whether Li Daochong was good or not, he had taken first place in the end-of-term testing. Now, he was standing in the ring of the finals. These people were shameless and boastful. They did not even have the right to participate in the competition, yet they still had the cheek to criticize. "If you have the ability, go and fight Li Daochong," Qiao Shima said angrily. Yo. I didn't know that your ex-sister-in-law was so protective of her ex-brother-in-law. It doesn't matter whether we fight Li Daochong or not. That kid has to defeat Zhao Tanxing first. Oh, by the way, you'd better not watch. Li Daochong will be beaten like a dog. Ha! The group of rich young masters roared with laughter. Their faces were full of ridicule. Qiao Shima was so angry that she stomped her feet. She was about to walk away and scold them when a female lecturer in front of the stands held a microphone and announced, "The finals of the Rising Star competition will now begin. The first match in the first ring, Li Daochong vs. Zhao Tanxing." As soon as she finished speaking, the noise in the surroundings suddenly stopped. Everyone's eyes were focused on the two people standing in the ring. Li Daochong stood with his hands behind his back, while Zhao Tanxing had a smile on his face. He did not take Li Daochong seriously at all. This kind of opponent could be killed in a matter of minutes. However, Zhao Tanxing had other plans. Previously, Li Daochong had been in the limelight. He wanted to give Li Daochong a good beating in front of everyone. Only then would he be able to display his strength. As soon as the female lecturer finished speaking, Zhao Tanxing had already dashed out. His figure disappeared almost instantly. Most of the students could not see how Zhao Tanxing moved. With a whoosh, Zhao Tanxing appeared in front of Li Daochong. His gasps could be heard from the audience. Li Daochong stood still. He could not see Zhao Tanxing's movements at all. Zhao Tanxing's robe was always open. Li Daochong's telekinesis attack had no effect on him at all. Someone exclaimed. Behind the crowd, Orson was eating an apple in his hand. Beside him stood Ao Kechuan and Helian Xiaoi. Chapter 121. There were only 3 arenas in the finals, and only 3 matches could be held at the same time. There were 24 students who had a bye, and they were also among the spectators. However, most of them were gathered below arena number 2. Duan Yao was in this match. Only the Orson brothers and Helian Xiaoi chose arena number 1. They were the only students who were paying attention to Li Daochong. Zhao Tanxing smiled sinisterly and flicked the flying frost sword in his hand. Zhao Tanxing's move was very tricky. He wanted to freeze Li Daochong, injure him, and then step on him. Zhao Tanxing had thoroughly studied Li Daochong's dosage last night. Although telekinesis attacks were invisible and hard to defend against, telekinesis attacks were useless as long as one wore a robe that could resist telekinesis. High-level talismans were indeed powerful, but they had to be of a high level. Li Daochong only had a level 4 talisman at most. He definitely didn't have a level 5 talisman. However, even a level 4 talisman was enough to make Zhao Tanxing suffer, so he took the initiative and instantly closed in on Li Daochong. At close range, no matter what level the talisman was, even level 10 talismans were useless. No matter how powerful they were, they had to be able to release them. At this moment, the tens of thousands of spectators saw Zhao Tanxing appear in front of Li Daochong in an instant, and many girls exclaimed, "Ah! Zhao Tanxing is so fast. Looks like he was hiding his strength in the semi-finals. Li Daochong is done for. The Zhao family's flying frost sword art is powerful and has a freezing effect. It's not inferior to the death frost chi. Zhao Wujin used this sword art to shine in the 100 schools joint exam last year, making people tremble in fear. This year, the Federation's Research Institute upgraded the Zhao family's ancestral sword art by 1 level, from the original high-grade human level to low-grade earth level. Li Daochong is probably so scared that his legs have turned to jelly. He's not moving at all." Zhao Tanxing couldn't help but reveal a light smile. He was definitely going to win this battle. However, just as Zhao Tanxing was about to attack, Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly. His expression looked fearless and even had a hint of ridicule. "You're laughing at your mother." Zhao Tanxing's anger and he cursed with more force. However, just as he opened his mouth, he stopped abruptly. Bang! Li Daochong punched Zhao Tanxing's face. Pooh! Blood spurted out, 2 front teeth spun in the air. Zhao Tanxing's body spun rapidly in the air, and was thrown several meters away before crashing to the ground with a thud. The audience was deathly silent. Time seemed to have frozen. Everyone's mouths were wide open as they watched what was happening in the ring. What was going on? What just happened? Most of the students with weaker cultivations didn't see it clearly. In their eyes, Zhao Tanxing had appeared in front of Li Daochong in an instant. Then, there was a muffled sound like a fist hitting a sandbag. Then, Zhao Tanxing spun as he was sent flying, spitting out blood and teeth. Puff! The teacup in the hands of the only young man sitting in the VIP seats shattered. His handsome face revealed a cold expression as he allowed the tea to flow down his slender hands. Zhao Wujin's gentle demeanor disappeared. His eyes narrowed as he looked at Li Daochong. That punch just now was extremely precise in terms of strength, speed, and angle. If he had only relied on his fists and feet, even if he suppressed his cultivation to the 11th layer of qi refinement, he might not have been able to dodge it. Zhao Tanxing was even more so. How could Li Daochong become so powerful in such a short time? Zhao Wujin had investigated Li Daochong's background from beginning to end last night. Apart from the strange changes that had occurred in the past few months, this kid's past was not worth mentioning. If he had to find something special about this kid, it could only be his awesome father, Li Tianyang. It was also because of this that Zhao Wujin could understand Li Daochong's changes in the past few months. But he never would have thought that Li Daochong would be so powerful. Zhao Tanxing could not even withstand a single blow from Li Daochong. Zhang Zhentian's hands tightly gripped the armrests of his chair. If he did not try to control his emotions, the chair would have already exploded. Li Daochong, what did Li Tianyang do to your body? Zhang Zhentian's heart was filled with doubts. Qiu Xiong, who was sitting next to Zhang Zhentian, had an ashen face. As a true cultivator, how could he not see the power of Li Daochong's punch? This punch was simple and unadorned, but it was precisely because of this that it showed its power. Qiu Xiong's turbid eyes flashed and the hatred in his heart grew even stronger. But at the same time, fear emerged in his heart. Li Tianyang, I never thought that you would be able to make this silly son of yours so powerful in such a short time. What on earth did you encounter on 13 Specter? Even with so many traps, I still couldn't kill you. It's already a miracle that you were able to come back with such serious injuries. Damn it, I still underestimated you. Qiu Xiong was filled with regret. Yuan Longji looked at the arena expressionlessly, but his heart was violently shaken. He never thought that Li Daochong would be so powerful. In just a few months, how could a silly kid with a depleted spirit vein become a heaven-sent genius? This didn't make sense. Yuan Longji had been in the cultivation education industry for decades, but he had never seen such a leap in strength. Even though he had seen it with his own eyes, he still could not believe it. The two principals, Shi Kuei and Xie Changjing, looked at each other in dismay. Even now, they still felt pained over the 2 items they had given out during the end-of-term testing. They felt that they had been wronged. They had given the Foundation Establishment Elixir and the 9 Splits Saber technique to a silly kid just like that. They felt like they had been cheated. But at this moment, the same thought flashed through their minds. It wasn't wronged. Brother Shi, how do you think this punch compares to Orson's? Xie Changjing couldn't help but ask. It's better than Orson's. This kid is really powerful. He didn't rely on luck or equipment. Brother Xie, we misjudged him, Shi Kuei had to admit. Yeah, we misjudged him, Xie Changjing agreed. Outside the arena, everyone was stunned by Li Daochong's punch. In the corner of the stands, several members of the Li family's upper echelon had an indescribable expression on their faces. Should they be happy? Or should they be unhappy? Li Tianxing had almost jumped out of his seat. In his eyes, this silly nephew of his had always been trash. The strongest person in this generation of the Li family was undoubtedly Li Tianyao. Li Tianxing would never have thought that Li Daochong would be able to throw such a punch. Outside the arena, Orson was leisurely munching on an apple. He was the only one who didn't show any surprise when he saw this scene. Beside him, Ao Kechuan and Helian Xiaoi had expected Li Daochong to be powerful, but they didn't expect him to be this powerful. Only Orson had an expression of having expected this. He was used to it. He swallowed the apple in his hand, spat out the core, and ate the rest. He then patted the residue off his hand. I already said that Zhao Tanxing is finished. This kind of trash is trash in front of Li Daochong. Ao Kechuan. In the finals, there won't be more than 3 people who can fight with Li Daochong. Helian Xiaoi tilted her head. Which 3? Orson grinned. Take a guess. Helian Xiaoi pouted. Forget it if you don't want to say. In the arena, Zhao Tanxing struggled to get up from the ground. The blood in his body was churning and his head was spinning. He could barely stand. Chapter 122. You don't want to admit defeat? Li Daocheng's words echoed in Zhao Tanxing's ears. A piece of trash that he should have stepped on actually dared to say such words to him. Li Daocheng actually just didn't want to add to the damage. Unforgivable. Zhao Tanxing's eyes revealed a sense of loss and annoyance that he had never felt before. At the same time, there was also a kind of anger, an anger that could not be any stronger. If he was defeated by Gu Chao or Aokachuan in one punch, then Zhao Tanxing would accept it. But Li Daocheng was different. In Zhao Tanxing's eyes, Li Daocheng was not even comparable to him. Pei. Zhao Tanxing spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was on the verge of collapse, but he held on. His face suddenly revealed a crazy smile. Li Daocheng, I originally didn't want to use that thing on you because you aren't worth it. But now I've changed my mind. You are worth it, ha ha ha. Just as Zhao Tanxing laughed out loud, his hand suddenly shook, and a white light flashed past, shooting straight at Li Daocheng. Don't! In the stands, Zhao Wujin directly stood up from his seat. Not only Zhao Wujin, but the other members of the Zhao family also revealed a look of fear. However, they were not worried about Zhao Tanxing, but rather Li Daocheng. This was because the Wind Edge talisman that Zhao Wujin gave to Zhao Tanxing was a level 4 talisman, but it was actually a level 5 talisman. This talisman was made by a grandmaster. It was originally a level 4 talisman, but during the process of drawing the spirit sequence, he used too much force and couldn't control it properly, causing the talisman to be larger than it was originally designed. This was a level 4 talisman that was infinitely close to a level 5 talisman. Level 4 talismans were already the limit for cultivators in the Qi refining stage. Only a few geniuses could resist a level 5 talisman. Even the battle sword Augustine couldn't resist a level 5 talisman when it was still in the Qi refining stage, unless it was equipped with powerful equipment. The Wind Edge talisman was the same as the Fire Edge talisman. It was a pure offensive talisman with only one purpose: to destroy the target. The competition had a strict rule that no one was allowed to kill. Violators will be disqualified and heavily punished. Zhao Wujin prepared this talisman for Zhao Tanxing so that he could use it when facing Gu Chao or Oak Kun. Those two fellows were both wearing Earth-rank magic robes. In addition to their outstanding strength, this kind of 5th-rank magic talisman was not a fatal threat to them, but it was enough to make them suffer. However, it was impossible for the others to block it. Zhao Wujin would kill Li Daocheng. Whether or not Li Daocheng was killed, Zhao Wujin didn't care at all. At this moment, he was worried that Zhao Tanxing would be disqualified or even imprisoned. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the Security Bureau would be able to convict Zhao Tanxing without an investigation. However, as soon as Zhao Wujin's words left his mouth, boom! A deafening explosion rang out. A violent explosion erupted in the area between Li Daocheng and Zhao Tanxing. Waves of air rolled, and the aftermath wreaked havoc. Some of the students who were very close to the stage were blown off their feet. The fragments of the stage from the explosion whistled through the air and shot towards the crowd. Several lecturers acted at the same time, raising a wall of air to block the fragment. Otherwise, these fragments would be enough to kill the weaker students. Piercing through their soft bodies would be a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, Zhao Tanxing's swaying body was sent flying. Like a kite with a broken string, he landed outside the stands, almost smashing into the crowd of spectating students. Fortunately, they were all very smart. Seeing Zhao Tanxing fly over, they ran faster than rabbit. With a thump, Zhao Tanxing landed on the ground, motionless like a dead pig. The Zhao family members were burning with anxiety. One of the elders leapt from the stands towards Zhao Tanxing. In the blink of an eye, he landed in front of Zhao Tanxing and grabbed Zhao Tanxing's wrist. In the next second, that Zhao family elder angrily glared at Li Daochong. Bastard, Tanxing already has no strength to resist. Why are you still so heavy-handed? Li Daochong frowned. Are you blind? He was the one who released the talisman first. I was only defending myself. How could I be heavy-handed? Humph, can't you dodge? The Zhao family elder coldly snorted. Li Daochong's expression turned cold. This old thing was simply shameless. He completely disregarded right and wrong to protect Zhao Tanxing. He refused to continue arguing with him. With so many people watching, there was no need to explain too much. The Zhao family elder's cultivation was only at the early stage of qi gathering. He was only thinking about Zhao Tanxing's safety. He did not see how powerful Li Daochong was. In the stands, Zhao Wujin's handsome face was filled with astonishment. In the instant that Zhao Tanxing had sent out his spirit talisman, Li Daochong had also sent out his own spirit talisman, almost at the same time. However, if one's cultivation was high enough, they would be able to see that Li Daochong released the talisman later. It was just that his reaction speed was beyond imagination. But what really shocked Zhao Wujin was the talisman that Li Daochong released. The power of the talisman was actually comparable to the one he gave Zhao Tanxing. In fact, it was even a little stronger, because after the explosion, the shock waves were all roaring in the direction of Zhao Tanxing, while Li Daochong's side did not even have the slightest fluctuation in the air. The difference between the two was obvious. Pa! The armrest of Zhao Wujin's chair broke in his hand. Senior Zhao, what's wrong? A beautiful girl standing behind Zhao Wujin asked curiously. Haha, it's nothing. Was the chair damaged by ice ants? Zhao Wujin pretended to be calm. No, these chairs were all bought back for the finals. The beautiful girl said curiously. Oh, is that so? Then there must be some defective products among them. Zhao Wujin restrained his emotions and said. Li Daochong did not let down his guard just because Zhao Tanxing had lost his ability to fight. His telekinesis perception shrouded Zhao Tanxing's body. Any movement of Zhao Tanxing's would be instantly detected by Li Daochong. Li Daochong wins. The lecturer who was the referee of the first arena was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted and announced the result. Li Daochong walked down the arena in front of everyone's eyes. In the stands, Qiao Shima's delicate body trembled slightly. She did not expect Li Daochong's strength to be so strong. Zhao Tanxing's strength was considered top-notch in Xiansong University. Except for a few geniuses, he was considered outstanding, but he could not even block a single punch from Li Daochong. How was this possible? Was this person still the foolish young master who had faked a marriage with her? Thinking back to their childhood, Qiao Shima felt that it was unreal. At this time, Li Daochong's figure became somewhat strange and mysterious in her eyes. Lin Shaoqing and the other rich young masters looked at Li Daochong walking down the arena with their mouths agape. Their mocking laughter just now turned into countless slaps to their faces. Not to mention Lin Shaoqing, this kid Zhao Tanxing can beat Li Daochong into a pig's head. Let's wait for Li Daochong to be humiliated. A minute ago, this sentence was said by Lin Shaoqing and the others. It seemed that the words had not completely disappeared yet, but they were slapped in the face on the spot. Qiao Shima's father, Qiao Sanlang, had a strange expression on his face. As for the words he had just belittled Li Daochong, he had long forgotten about them. For people like him, there was no shame. Qiao Sanlang was now thinking that Li Daochong was so strong that his future achievements would be above Lin Shaoqing's. The strength of an individual could surpass the strength of a family. If a family did not have a powerful person, no matter how strong its financial strength was, it was just an empty shell. Perhaps his daughter should continue her fate with Li Daochong, Qiao Sanlang thought. For him, how to make a fortune with his daughter was the most important thing. His own debt was high, and now he could only sell his 2 daughters. Li Daochong walked down the arena, and the students automatically made a path for him. In addition to the shock on their faces, there was more awe for powerful practitioners. As Li Daochong walked, no one talked loudly, and no one ridiculed him. At this time, the foolish young master who was often ridiculed by everyone no longer existed. He was replaced by a mysterious, tall, and handsome young man. Arena 1, the second round, Orson vs. Hongwu. The lecturer's voice sounded, and at this time, the students recovered from the shock. As soon as they heard the names of Orson and Hongwu, they suddenly became energetic. Chapter 123. Before the exam, Hongwu was the absolute king of Xiansong University's elite class, and Zhan Honglai had always been suppressed by him. After the exam, Hongwu relied on his strong performance to obtain a good ranking, and Yuan Longji personally gave the order to transfer Hongwu to the elite class. Hongwu's achievements were finally recognized by the Hong family, which was also one of the 4 great families. In these 3 months, Hongwu obtained more cultivation resources than he obtained in the previous 20 years. The Hong family's Guiyuan Hall allowed Hongwu to use it freely. In these 3 months, Hongwu's cultivation and strength increased by leaps and bounds, reaching the peak of Qi refining stage 11. If not for the fact that he wanted to strengthen his foundation, Hongwu could have already entered the Qi gathering realm. Not only Hongwu, but many geniuses were not in a hurry to break through the Qi refining stage and enter the Qi gathering realm. The deeper and more luxuriant one's spiritual roots were, the higher the possibility of entering the foundation establishment stage. If one only wanted to break through, it would be very difficult in the future. Therefore, almost all the geniuses were not in a hurry to break through to the Qi gathering realm. However, although Hongwu's strength was strong, his luck in the semifinals was terrible, and his first opponent was Aokichuan. Hongwu also knew this, but he directly admitted defeat. It was not that he was afraid, and it was not that he did not have confidence. It was just that in the semifinals, there was no need to use real swords and spears. Hongwu was the same as Yi Feiyue, admitting defeat in his first match, and after winning all 4 matches, he was unable to enter the top 10. In the semifinals, Hongwu also met a strange opponent, and although he won, because he spent a lot of time, he was not able to enter the top 20. In the end, Hongwu was only able to enter the finals in the 27th place. With this ranking, Hongwu clearly did not have much choice. When it was his turn to choose, the remaining 4 were Orson, Aokichuan, Gu Chao, and Duan Yao. Gu Chao and Aokichuan were out of the question. As for Orson and Duan Yao, they were also tough. Compared to the 2 perverts, they were only slightly better. In the end, Hongwu had no choice but to choose Orson. In fact, Duan Yao might be a more suitable opponent. However, they were all from the same school, and it would be inappropriate for them to kill each other in the first match. If Hongwu really chose Duan Yao, it could only mean that he was scared. As a combat practitioner, Hongwu couldn't admit defeat no matter what. After weighing the pros and cons, Orson was obviously his only choice. In the arena, Hongwu was fully focused. Air swirled around his body, forming a weak gang qi. This was the result of releasing the gang qi from the body of a combat cultivator. Orson was munching on an apple in his hand. He hadn't stopped eating since the start of the finals. It was as if he would feel terrible if he didn't eat. Facing Hongwu, Orson appeared to be somewhat indifferent. This opponent in front of him really couldn't arouse his interest. Orson swallowed half of the apple. He didn't even look at Hongwu. Instead, he stared at Li Daochong, who was chatting with a beauty under a tree far away from the arena. Hongwu was annoyed at Orson's action of ignoring him, but he couldn't flare up. Begin. The referee gave the order. Hongwoo's foot suddenly exploded, shooting out with a bang. The small pit where he was originally standing was like an explosion. The power of this step was extremely shocking. Hongwoo and Orson were both close combat practitioners. They focused on body refinement and chi refinement as support. The stronger the body, the stronger the chi. They were the model of using martial arts to enter the Tao. If they were to join the army in the future, they would become the spearhead of the army, specializing in dealing with powerful ghost beasts. Hongwoo punched out, aiming directly at Orson's face. But Orson didn't move from his original position. He only raised his hand and easily received Hongwoo's swift and violent punch. Orson grinned. Soft and powerless. Boring. Hongwoo also smiled. Is that so? Orson suddenly felt that something was wrong. There was a strange energy lingering on the palm of his hand that caught Hongwoo's fist. Bang! With a muffled sound, Orson hurriedly retreated 3 steps. Hongwoo's punch looked ordinary at the beginning, but it was actually filled with killing intent. It was the Hong family's unique skill, Mountain Flood Fist. Orson was slightly surprised and smiled. Interesting. You can let me deal with you a little more seriously. Before his voice died away, Orson had already disappeared. Hongwoo's eyes widened, but he still couldn't see Orson's movements clearly. He could only vaguely see a shadow. When Orson reappeared, he appeared on the right side of Hongwoo. Insignificant skill. Hongwoo coldly snorted and instantly punched to the right. Is that so? Orson's voice sounded in Hongwoo's left ear. Hongwoo was shocked, but he couldn't withdraw his right fist as Orson's shadow had already disappeared. Orson appeared on the left side of Hongwoo and punched out. Bang! Hongwoo reacted in an extremely short time and raised his arm to block. Orson's punch landed solidly on Hongwoo's side arm. Although it didn't hit a vital point, this punch was powerful and heavy. Hongwoo slid more than 10 meters away from the stage as if he was skating. Thud! Hongwoo stamped his foot on the stage to stop himself. Otherwise, he would have slid out of the stage. Being knocked out of the stage was also considered a loss. The fight in the first stage was in full swing, and the other 2 stages were also having fierce fights. Regardless of their strength, the tens of thousands of spectators were watching with great interest. This year's Blue Bay Stars New Generation had a lot of experts. Compared to the previous years, both the quantity and quality were much higher. This was another grand occasion after Battle Sword Augustine's generation. In the stands, the head of the Department of Education, Yu Boming, couldn't help but look delighted. The Blue Bay Star could finally make a name for itself in next year's 100 schools joint examination. First there was Zhao Wujin, then there was Gu Chao and Ao Kachuan. Orson, Duan Yao, and Yi Feiyue were also very good. That kid Li Daochong, whom he hadn't heard of before, seemed to have a lot of trump cards. He had a personality and could be considered a talent. Hongwoo, Zhan Honglai, Luo Dahai, and Wu Yu were also very strong. With so many promising talents to choose from, Yu Boming was overjoyed. The Shenghua Federation was currently lacking in talent. The cultivation army on the front line was being depleted much faster than expected. If they couldn't be replenished in time, once Dark Ghost broke through a gap, the rear would be finished. On the surface, the cultivation army seemed to be the most important thing in the Federation, but in reality, the Department of Education was much more important. Without the Department of Education, there would be no cultivation army. Education was the foundation of a nation. Only by constantly training a large number of cultivators could a cultivation army exist. Otherwise, there would be nothing to talk about. This was also why half of the members of the Federation's parliament were from the education system. Yu Boming's goal was to first become an official in the Department of Education, and then find a way to enter the parliament and become a member. If he wanted to be promoted, he had to have achievements. If he wanted to have achievements, he had to have good seedlings under his command. Only with good seedlings could it be possible to train powerful cultivators. If he could make military contributions in the future, Yu Boming, as the head of the local Department of Education, would naturally make contributions. Meritorious service was the biggest capital for promotion. Seeing so many good seedlings, how could Yu Boming not be happy? The 3 stages were in full swing, and cries of surprise rang out from the audience. Chapter 124. In Li Daochong's eyes, Yi Feiyue was a money-printing machine that he could take as much as he wanted. Every time he traded with her, Li Daochong would make a fortune. This girl didn't care about money at all. Of course, Li Daochong could tell that Yi Feiyue was purposely giving him more money, so he would naturally remember this favor. In Yi Feiyue's eyes, Li Daochong was a mysterious spirit sequencer. The spirit talisman Li Daochong used against Zhao Tanxing just now was many times more powerful than the Golden Bell spirit talisman from before. Yi Feiyue estimated that it was at least a Class 5 spirit talisman. Li Daochong's instant defeat of Zhao Tanxing made Yi Feiyue recall how she had chosen to admit defeat against Li Daochong in the semifinals. Not to mention Li Daochong's strength, Yi Feiyue knew that she wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few of his spirit talismans. "Mr. Li, I want to buy some spirit talismans from you. Do you have any extra on you?" Yi Feiyue returned to the main topic after greeting him. She directly addressed Li Daochong as Mr. Li and looked at Li Daochong with admiration and admiration. Li Daochong was only 19 years old. He was tall and thin with a clean face. Not only was he powerful, but he was also a special spirit sequencer. No matter how one looked at it, he was the definition of tall, rich, and handsome in this world. Of course, only Yi Feiyue knew this. She was sure that no one else knew that Li Daochong was also a spirit sequencer except for her. Li Daochong's master was even more incredible. In Yi Feiyue's eyes, the Li family was not even worth mentioning when compared to Li Daochong's master. The Li family would definitely regret their actions towards Li Daochong one day. "I still have some left." Li Daochong had made a total of 8 Class 4 spirit talismans. He originally wanted to sell a few to recoup his costs. It was too extravagant for him to use them alone, so he told Yi Feiyue the truth. "What level is this talisman? What types are there? Can you sell me some?" Yi Feiyue asked cautiously, her eyes filled with eagerness and longing. She had personally experienced the might of Li Daochong's talisman and knew how powerful it was. Level 4, Golden Bell Talisman and Ice Talisman. 2 in total, Li Daochong replied after thinking for a while. He had a total of 8 talismans on him. When dealing with Zhao Tanxing, he had used a Thunder Talisman, so naturally, Li Daochong wanted to keep the remaining one. The Fire Talisman was relatively more powerful, so Li Daochong also wanted to keep it. Thus, he only had the Golden Bell Talisman and the Ice Talisman left for Yi Feiyue to choose from. When Yi Feiyue heard about the Golden Bell Talisman, her eyes lit up. She just happened to need one and could use it to deal with Duan Yao. Now that Duan Yao's strength and cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, Yi Feiyue had been looking for Li Daochong to buy some talismans after defeating Duan Yao. However, Yi Feiyue couldn't find any trace of Li Daochong until she arrived at the ghost hunting star. Later, Yi Feiyue bought the Golden Bell Talisman elsewhere, but its defensive power was far inferior to Li Daochong's. The level 4 talisman was only slightly stronger. Now, if she wanted to defend against Duan Yao's all-out attack, it would be impossible without a level 5 talisman. Of course, she could also use the level 4 talisman made by Li Daochong. On the market, a level 5 talisman was worth at least 1 million, and its power wasn't that great. If it was made by a master, it would cost at least 2 million. Even if the Yi family was rich and overbearing, and Yi Feiyue had ample resources every month, 2 million was still a huge sum for her. However, for the sake of the hegemony tournament, Yi Feiyue could afford to spend a few million. It was just that she had to use the money. If the talisman she bought wasn't good enough, then the money would be wasted. She might as well not buy it. However, Li Daochong's talisman was different. Yi Feiyue trusted it. "Mr. Li, sell me both talismans." "Name a price," Yi Feiyue said straightforwardly. 1,200,000 each. 2 talismans for a total of 2,400,000. Li Daochong directly named a price. Yi Feiyue thought that Li Daochong would ask for an exorbitant price. After hearing the price, she was stunned for a moment, thinking that she had misheard. According to Yi Feiyue's previous experience of using the Golden Bell talisman, the level 4 talisman Li Daochong spoke of should be comparable to a level 5 talisman. Even the trashiest level 5 talisman on the market wouldn't sell for less than 1,300,000. Li Daochong only asked for 1,200,000? So cheap? Yi Feiyue wondered if she was hearing things. Or could it be that Li Daochong is giving me a price based on the fact that we are classmates? The cost of creating a high-level talisman was extremely high, and it also required a lot of time and effort. Coding an exquisite talisman required skill, and skill also required money. Seeing Yi Feiyue in a daze, Li Daochong thought that he had asked for too high a price. She couldn't accept it and felt a little regretful. If he had known, he would have asked for 1 million. Just as Li Daochong was wondering if he should add that he would give her a 20% discount since they were classmates, Yi Feiyue straightforwardly said, "Okay, deal." "Rich woman," Li Daochong praised in his heart. He immediately raised his wristwatch. Yi Feiyue didn't even look at the talismans before paying. After Li Daochong confirmed it, he immediately took out 2 level 4 enhanced spirit talismans and handed them to Yi Feiyue. They were the same as the level 3 Golden Bell spirit talisman from before. Their quality was extremely poor. They were wrinkled yellow and half the size of a palm. At first glance, they looked like leftover toilet paper. However, when Yi Feiyue received these 2 talismans that looked like toilet paper, she was overjoyed as if she had received a treasure. "Mr. Li, remember to inform me if you have any goods in the future," Yi Feiyue said as she put the 2 talismans into her storage ring. "Okay," Li Daochong replied. A light filled with the stench of money flashed through his pitch-black eyes. This money was really easy to earn. Li Daochong could ignore the cost of producing 8 talismans. He had spent 200,000 per talisman, so the total cost was 1,600,000. Selling 2 talismans would earn him back all the money, and he would still have an extra 800,000. Li Daochong finally understood why spirit sequencers were so rich. Even low-level spirit sequencers were very rich. It was a profiteering industry. This kind of profession was similar to that of a programmer on Earth. It was even more profitable than drug trafficking. Li Daochong had been focusing on cultivation recently. Because he had enough resources, he didn't need to make money urgently. Many students saw Yi Feiyue take the initiative to approach Li Daochong and have an intimate conversation with him. The shock in their eyes was even greater than when Li Daochong sent Zhao Tanxing flying with a punch. In the eyes of Profound Firmament University's students, Yi Feiyue was a goddess floating in the clouds, unattainable. Whether it was her family background, appearance, or personal strength, she was the #1 girl in Profound Firmament University. Qiao Shima only had looks, while Yi Feiyue had everything. Of course, the former was easier to get, while the latter was not something an ordinary person could touch. Even the 4 great clans might not be able to reach her. This was because only powerful male cultivators were worthy of powerful female cultivators. If a female cultivator was in the Qi condensation realm, she would definitely have to marry a male cultivator in the Foundation establishment realm. At the very least, a female cultivator in the Foundation establishment realm would have to become the dual cultivation partner of a Jin Dan cultivator. Female cultivators were more flexible than male cultivators in this aspect. If a male cultivator didn't have absolute strength, it was impossible for him to marry a female cultivator. No matter how rich he was, it was useless. This was because the number of female cultivators was much less than that of male cultivators. Things were precious when they were rare. For a woman like Yi Feiyue, who had such strength in the early stages of awakening her spirit vein, her status was much more honorable than that of a man. In the future, she was destined to become the partner of a powerful cultivator. Oh my God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Yi Feiyue actually smiled. A student cried out in surprise. Why is Yi Feiyue being so intimate with Li Daochong? Even if Li Daochong is different from the past, isn't he still too far from matching Yi Feiyue? Yi Feiyue couldn't have been drugged by Li Daochong's bewitching drug, right? This is the first time I've seen her smile. Many students surrounding the ring were dumbstruck as they looked at Li Daochong and Yi Feiyue chatting under the tree. What did Li Daochong give Yi Feiyue just now? If I'm not mistaken, it should be 2 pieces of straw paper. Chapter 125. After purchasing Li Daochong's spirit talisman, Yi Feiyue's confidence immediately changed. After the first match on the 3 stages ended, the next match would immediately begin. On the first stage, although Hongwu was brave and fearless and used all of his trump cards, when faced with Orson's wild beast-like body and terrifying strength, he was still no match for Orson. In the end, Hongwu wasn't his opponent and was defeated after a few dozen moves. Orson didn't even pant and his heart didn't beat fast. He simply didn't use any strength. Otherwise, Hongwu might not have been able to withstand even one move. On the third stage, the 2 students fought fiercely for more than 10 minutes before the outcome was finally decided. However, both of them were seriously injured and wouldn't be able to continue fighting for a while. Several pharmacists simultaneously went up to help the 2 students off the stage and entered a medical shuttle to treat them. They soaked them in the best spirit recovery liquid and fed them the best spirit recovery liquid. In a battle between Qi condensation cultivators, no matter how serious their injuries were, as long as they were treated by a high-level pharmacist and coupled with the best spirit liquids and spirit medicines, as long as they didn't die and didn't suffer from any internal injuries, no matter how serious their injuries were, they would be able to recover in a very short time. The medical team invited for the hegemony tournament was the best in Blue Bay Star. Even the Purple Firmament People's Hospital's president, Wang Qinggu, personally came to support the hegemony tournament. After the 2 students were carried off the third stage, Yi Feiyue and a thin male student from Cloud Mist University walked onto the stage. Yi Feiyue looked at her opponent's appearance and slightly wrinkled her elegant eyebrows. This guy's glabella was dark. At a glance, she could tell that he was either an overindulgent or a drug addict. How did he enter the finals? Below the stage, Helian Xiaoyi's small mouth slightly opened as she said in surprise, Oihue? When did he come to Blue Bay Star? Standing to the side, Ao Kachuan turned his head and gave Helian Xiaoyi a strange look. Oihue? Isn't his surname Wanyan? The name on the list is Wanyan Ihue. Helian Xiaoyi frowned and said, his surname is O, and he's the strongest expert in the Scarlet Sun planet's O clan's generation. His cultivation technique is extremely sinister, and his nature is cruel. He offended a certain senior expert on the Scarlet Sun planet, and the O clan did their best to protect him. They had a falling out with that expert, and I heard that the brat's arms were broken before he gave up. This was something that happened 2 years ago, and after that there was no more news of him. Okikin had a faint smile on his face. He felt a warm current surging in his blood, gradually growing stronger and stronger with the constant emergence of powerful fellows in this competition. Interesting, very interesting. Ha! Orson, who had just stepped down from the stage, laughed. However, his gaze never left Li Daochong. At this moment, less than 10 meters away from Ok-kun's group of 3, Li Daochong was standing alone in the crowd, looking at Yi Feiyue on stage number 3. Li Daochong didn't have much interest in any of the matches. Originally, he wouldn't be watching, but just a moment ago, he sensed an extremely weak trace of death aura. At first, Li Daochong thought that it was his misconception, or perhaps it was an animal's corpse that emitted it. After scanning with his telekinesis, Li Daochong finally locked onto the thin male student that walked up the stage with Yi Feiyue. There's death aura in this person's body? Li Daochong faintly frowned. His perception towards death aura could be said to be extremely sharp, and any kind of death aura wouldn't be able to escape his senses. As Li Daochong's cultivation increased, so did his telekinesis. He might not dare to say anything else, but in terms of sensing death aura, Li Daochong was definitely comparable to Jin Dan, or even Yuanying. Yi Feiyue's opponent looked really strange, which made Li Daochong somewhat unable to understand. How could a living person have death aura on his body? Little Li, after more than 10 matches, you didn't even bother to watch Gu Chao. How come you have the time to watch the match between Yi Feiyue and Wanyan Ihue? Li Daochong turned to look at Orson, who was nibbling on an apple and calling him Little Li. He faintly smiled and said, I'm not interested in men, but beautiful women are another matter. Haha, a kindred spirit. Tell me, who do you favor in this match? Orson didn't care whether Li Daochong was speaking the truth or not and asked with a laugh. Yi Feiyue. Li Daochong said the name. If Yi Feiyue didn't purchase the 2 talismans from Li Daochong, then the winner of this match would most likely be Wanyan Ihue. However, with the 2 talismans, the winner would undoubtedly be Yi Feiyue. Especially after Li Daochong sensed the death aura on Wanyan Ihue's body. Although he didn't know what was going on, Yi Feiyue's chances of winning had instead increased. This was because the talismans made by Li Daochong would be more powerful against the death aura. Talismans were made by spirit sequence masters using telekinesis and spirit energy. The path of the spirit sequence was the spirit pattern, which was carved onto the talisman paper to make talismans. Therefore, the talismans contained the creator's spirit energy and telekinesis. Li Daochong's spirit energy and telekinesis were converted from the hot-blooded upgrade tool that could devour 10,000 ghosts. They were the natural nemesis of death aura. Regardless of the reason for the death aura on Wanyan Ihue's body, once Yi Feiyue used the talismans made by Li Daochong, he would suffer double the damage. Oh? Little Li, I didn't see that you really like beautiful women. Hehe, I feel that the dead-faced Wanyan Ihue has a higher chance of winning. How about we make a bet? Orson said confidently. A bet? Li Daochong turned to look at Orson. That's right. Let's bet on who will win this match. What do you want to bet? The loser will have to admit defeat in front of everyone when we fight, Orson said casually while eating an apple. Okay, but I want to add 1 million to the bet. Li Daochong said with a faint smile. It's a deal. Let's clap hands as an oath. Orson raised his hand. Li Daochong waved his hand and high-fived Orson. With a paw sound, the two of them smiled knowingly. At this moment, the referee of the third arena gave the command to start. Before the referee finished speaking, a dark green mist appeared around Wanyan Ihue. Yi Feiyue's beautiful eyes focused and she was somewhat puzzled. What kind of technique was this? Wanyan Ihue's deathly pale face revealed a faint smile and he quickly disappeared into the dark green mist. The mist shrouded the entire arena. Isn't this the low-grade Earth-level technique flower-gazing in the fog from the third floor of Cloud Mist University's library? A student below the arena who knew about it said with a tone full of surprise. Didn't Wanyan Ihue use a black sword in the preliminaries and semifinals? I didn't see him use this technique. Nonsense. How could a contestant of his level take out his trump card in the preliminaries and semifinals? But Wanyan Ihue really hit it well. At this moment, Yi Feiyue was also shrouded in the mist and couldn't see more than 1 meter. Wanyan Ihue seemed to have disappeared. Yi Feiyue held the red lotus sword in her hand and was on guard. She concentrated her mind and spirit energy in her ears to listen for any sound in the mist. Bang! A sound echoed. Yi Feiyue's hair stood on end. She suddenly turned around and waved her sword. Wanyan Ihue was right behind her. Yi Feiyue's sword split Wanyan Ihue in half. Seeing this scene, Yi Feiyue let out a frightened cry. How could she have thought that a casual defense would split Wanyan Ihue in half? At the same time, Li Daochong, who was standing outside the arena, had a strange expression on his face. Chapter 126. The dark green fog was very strange. Even with Li Daochong's eyesight, he couldn't see through it. Perhaps even the Jin Dan cultivators wouldn't be able to see through this fog. It was very strange. Li Daochong glanced at the higher-ups in the VIP stands, and each of them revealed a strange expression. Although Li Daochong couldn't see inside, his telekinesis could sense everything that was happening in the fog. Just now, Li Daochong had clearly sensed a ghostly aura. The hot-blooded upgrader in his body even let out a soft cry, as if urging Li Daochong to kill the dark ghost he sensed. Wanyan Ihue's body was strange. Li Daochong's eyes flashed, and he raised his telekinesis to the limit. Beep! Discovered painted ghost. The corner of Li Daochong's eye twitched violently. The painted ghost was an extremely sinister type of dark ghost. It wasn't a high level, only at the great ghost level, but its concealment technique was exceptionally high. There were many types of dark ghosts, and they were divided into more than 10 levels according to their strength. However, almost every level had some sinister dark ghosts that were proficient in concealment technique. The most famous of the dwarf ghosts was the Black Resentment Binding Spirit. Once it was parasitized, even Jin Dan cultivators wouldn't be able to see through it. The painted ghost was the Black Resentment Binding Spirit of the Great Ghost level, but it was much stronger. The painted ghost was formless, and it lived by eating people. However, it didn't eat their skin. After possessing a person, it would first eat their soul, and then gradually corrode their flesh and organs. In the end, only bones and skin were left. The painted ghost would turn into an illusory body and attach itself to the bones, becoming an exact copy of its original body. The painted ghost was the king of disguises among the dark ghosts. As long as it was given enough time, it could transform into any physical form. The painted ghost could even copy the aura, behavior, and consciousness of its target. This was its most powerful aspect. At the same time, without Yuanying's cultivation, it was almost impossible to see through the painted ghost's disguise. Li Daochong also heard the conversation between Helian Xiaoyi and Ao Kechuan. This Wanyan Ihue wasn't someone from Blue Bay Star, but from Red Sun Star. Li Daochong couldn't help but frown. He thought back to when the family had been parasitized by dozens of Black Resentment Binding Spirit. This O Ihue from planet Crimson Sun had been devoured by the painted ghost. Just what had happened on planet Crimson Sun? Li Daochong was puzzled and curious about planet Crimson Sunday. Could it be that there was a treasure on planet Crimson Sun that attracted the nether ghosts? It was impossible for the Hades to gather all their forces to attack the Red Sun planet. There was nothing special about this rank 4 cultivation planet. It was only slightly stronger than the Blue Bay Star. It could be considered one of the more powerful rank 4 cultivation planet. If it developed well, Yuanying cultivators would appear, and it would become a rank 3 cultivation planet. Could it be that a treasure important to Dark Ghost had appeared on planet Crimson Sun? Just as Li Daochong was thinking, a loud sound came from the fog in Arena 3. Soon after, everything returned to normal. Yi Feiyue was gasping for breath as she stood in the fog. She was no longer able to distinguish where she was. Even though she knew in her heart that she was standing in the third ring of Xiansong University's square, the fog in front of her made her feel as if she was on another planet. Yi Feiyue thought she had accidentally killed Wanyan Yihue when she cut him in half. However, in the next second a piece of dead wood fell to the ground. Wanyan Yihue actually knew Chimenduanjia. Yi Feiyue was shocked and didn't dare to hold back. She faced the fog and sent out a red lotus. Fortunately, Yi Feiyue's reaction was fast. After a dozen or so strikes, the fog around her dispersed a bit. In an instant, she saw a foot appear from the dispersed fog. Yi Feiyue didn't hesitate and sent out a red lotus stab. The sword light was like a swan as it slashed towards the foot. Wanyan Yihue, who was hiding in the dark, didn't expect to be discovered. He let out a strange laugh and summoned the black sword in his hand. That's right, he summoned a flying sword. If people saw a chi condensation cultivator using a flying sword, they would definitely be shocked. Because only Foundation establishment cultivators could use a flying sword to attack. How could a chi condensation cultivator master a flying sword technique? Only Li Daochong knew that Wanyan Yihue wasn't using spiritual energy or a flying sword technique. He was using Dark Ghost's telekinesis technique. The red lotus stab and the flying sword collided, creating a loud sound. Yi Feiyue quickly retreated a dozen or so steps. Wanyan Yihue once again disappeared into the fog without a sound. The audience outside the fog had a puzzled expression. They didn't know what had happened inside the fog. Orson stood beside Li Daochong and frowned. This Wanyan Yihue's aura is very strong. I feel that he has already reached the chi condensation realm. Li Daochong didn't reply. His face revealed a trace of seriousness. He immediately sent out a telekinesis sound transmission. Yi Feiyue, don't waste any more time. Find an opportunity to use the talisman. He isn't someone you can deal with. Don't be reluctant. If you win this match, I'll give you one for free. Yi Feiyue felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know what to do when Li Daochong's voice entered her ears. Her delicate face revealed a trace of a smile. She originally didn't plan to use the talisman. After all, it cost 1,200,000 yuan. If she used it to deal with Wanyan Yihue, she wouldn't have any cards left to deal with Duan Yao. However, Li Daochong promised to give her one, so it was a different story. Yi Feiyue suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. A wrinkled talisman appeared in her hand. It was the ice talisman. Wanyan Yihue was too strange. Yi Feiyue didn't want to fight for a long time. Even Li Daochong said that this guy wasn't easy to deal with. Then, she had to end the battle quickly. At this moment, a brilliance flashed in the fog and a black light shot towards Yi Feiyue. Yi Feiyue sucked in a breath of cold air. She felt as if the god of death had arrived. Without any hesitation, the ice talisman left her hand. In an instant, a gust of cold air instantly spread out. The ice talisman turned into an icicle and collided with the black light. The black light was annihilated. The surrounding fog condensed into frost and quickly disappeared. The third arena reappeared in front of everyone. On the arena, Yi Feiyue stood in the center with a shocked expression. Wanyan Yihue stood less than 3 meters away from her. He was frozen on the spot with a shocked expression on his face. In fact, the ice talisman didn't directly hit Wanyan Yihue. Yi Feiyue only used the talisman to block the black light. However, the aftermath of the ice talisman's cold air made Wanyan Yihue lose his ability to move. This cold air was mixed with an aura that made Wanyan Yihue feel fear. Yi Feiyue quickly reacted. She raised the red lotus sword in her hand and was about to attack. I admit defeat. Wanyan Yihue blurted out. His face was filled with horror. He was afraid that Yi Feiyue would really attack him with her sword. At the periphery of the crowd, Orson's indifferent face revealed a trace of surprise. Li Daochong's dignified expression slightly relaxed. He was secretly relieved. He wasn't worried that Yi Feiyue would lose. Winning or losing wasn't important. Even if Yi Feiyue lost the battle and caused him to lose the bet with Orson, Li Daochong wouldn't think it was a big deal. He was willing to accept his loss. After the blood-boiling level-up device indicated that it had found the painted skin ghost, a line of small words appeared below. The painted skin ghost was in the splitting stage. To put it bluntly, it was the due date of a human. It could find a suitable host at any time and parasitize the host to give birth to another painted skin ghost. Yi Feiyue was clearly a good host. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.